Thanks.
Better than Ukrainians, I imagine.
I was just watching a report. The youngsters in Russia are fucking are demonstrating against this.
Of course they are.
A lot of people are being arrested for treason. Putin said if you demonstrate against this, you're going to be arrested for treason.
They're very brave and probably foolish young people, and I appreciate them very much when they mean well like that. Not what we typically see over here in the States anymore, but in the old days, I loved young people who did that. I don't think he'll actually follow through in that.
Well, I think probably a lot of the Russian people are genuinely scared that they're going to get pretty big reprisals, World War III style.
Yeah, probably some of them legitimately are.
So yeah,
I mean,
it's just this chaos. It's spreading everywhere, isn't it?
I think it's more of a question of them, the people saying, you know what, this isn't the Soviet Union anymore, and this is wrong, and we got to stand up and speak out about it. And it's the same kind of ideal about mandates. It's people that don't like what they're doing, standing up and saying no. Same thing.
Yeah, and they're being smeared as Nazis, which is of course crazy.
Yep. Or treasonous.
So, I talked to Rex again yesterday. He's going to get me in touch with Gaia, some guy named Michael over there. And the show I did with him got demonetized for like the non-conquering the solar system part.
Which bit? Because I listened to that, Ramon. Sorry, why did it get demonetized?
I guess it was part one about the book, about China and all that. So, anyways, but he loved the idea that, as I told you, History Channel never picked up on the material that we did for with HHA putting together like all the Arthur evidence and stuff. And then I told the guy, I said, look, like you're talking 20-year, 30-year research careers of so many men. You want me to compress all that down? That it'd be much better if they just made an Ancient Alien style show and it covered Arthur, the real Arthur history, and it covered the electric universe and the real history of science, and even went so far as talking about aliens and plasmoids and all this kind of stuff. He was overwhelmed, but then COVID happened, and I think it's the main thing. So I want to take that same stuff and pitch it over to Gaia and get them salivating. If I believe Walt Thornhill's episodes were actually successful. Now I don't have any stats to back it up, but I believe that they were successful.
And David Talbot's episodes too.
Right. So I think that they'll. He loved it. He said, and I want to do a regular show with you, because we think on the same wavelengths about a lot of this stuff, and I want to help fight the power. YouTube isn't the place to do it, and I got this app coming out, blah blah blah. So it was a good call, and that's the news I've got as far as all that goes.
Right. Well, I've recently come across a source of absolutely wonderful information, which is going to yield a real lot of fun research and development. Well, I don't know development, but what it is basically, I've come across this archaeologist. He's a Cambridge. Well, I think he's Dutch. He's a Dutch bloke. I think he worked at Cambridge for many years. And anyway, he spent 30 years formulating this theory about the location of ancient Troy and the battles and basically these, and he explains why in great detail why ancient Troy was set in Britain and not in Troy, and then there's the travels of Odysseus. He couches those in terms of not in terms of the Mediterranean, but in terms of the Atlantic, and there are a lot of reasons why he says at one point on the island of the Lastragais or something, basically giant man-eating cannibals, massive ones that smashed all the boats up and speared them and ate them, and that was in Havana of all places. So anyway, these adventures, you know, the journey of Ulysses. It's a fantastic old story anyway, but this puts it in kind of a very different context, and this website I've found, I'll leave a link in the chat in a minute. It's there's pages and pages of it with maps and everything. It's absolutely wonderful. And this guy's based his work upon 5 other archaeologists or anthropologists. One called Callio from 1876, and another number of other ones of that kind of that sort of period of time who subscribe to this theory. And it's very, very interesting because there are just so many links to the place names. It's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I've been busy reading all that, and it's fantastic, really is. So that's been me.
That sounds fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, it is. It's absolutely fantastic, and there's I think there are a number of sort of Roman authors who spoke about the fall of Troy, Roman and Greek, but Homer was sort of a very different kettle of fish, and all the other Roman historians didn't trust him at all. And when you actually read the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Iliad, and you can see that the poetry it's not set in the Mediterranean. It's set in Britain, where you've got a cold grey sea and horrible freezing cold winds coming over, and these are all described. So we you know, there's an actual school of thought that thinks that Homer was a repository for this for the ancient British knowledge, that basically went to Greece from Britain, and there are a lot of these proofs why, and it really adds up. Fantastic. And when you think as well that just north of this site that he's mentioning, we found the 2 oldest boats in the world ever found. I think 8,000 BC, and when they dug them up, they thought they were Viking boats, but they were like 9,000 years earlier than that. Quite incredible, really. So, and that was just round the corner. So you know, in the old story, there were 1,189 boats that set sail from Argos to Troy. Now, you could actually run it there you could probably run it in 5 days. You never mind having to build 1,000 boats. You know what I mean? You'd be far faster walking it there from Greece to Troy. You know, so there are a lot of odd things about that story. And as for getting lost in the Mediterranean for 10 years, that's pretty hard to do as well. I reckon you could swim the whole lot of it in 10 years.
God damn, never. Sorry, excuse my language. I'm fucking
It's okay.
fighting with some fucking bullshit right now. Sorry. That has to be bleeped out.
Yeah, so I'll leave these links. It's well worth a read. It's and it's absolutely fantastic stuff, and it all fits together. You see, with this with the Welsh in America idea, because they're actually talking about Havana as being called the gateway, and it was at this time when all the copper's getting mined out of the Great Lakes, and of course, and it was also this time when the invasion of the Sea Peoples occurred, which again is the aforementioned heroes, and they think the British Empire at the time was controlling this the copper trade into particularly Egypt and the markets for it, which were pretty massive, and that is why the war happened, because of course the British were the only ones who had the tin, unless I think there was some tin mines somewhere in Afghanistan, but there were certainly tin mines in Britain, which were essential for making the bronze. So from that they had the main military set up to start the Bronze Age off, and that's so the Trojan War is what finished the Bronze Age probably, because obviously after that there was 500 years when a dark age happened. 500 years.
Who were the people that were mining Michigan? I've heard of them as called as giants. I've heard of America called as the Promised Land, or the Holy, like the land that I guess like that it talks about in the Bible.
Solomon's Mines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would be about contemporary as well, you know.
The
So they
Phoenicians,
must
the Phoenicians were involved in that.
That's what I've heard. And the Sumerians.
The Phoenicians, not the
Okay.
Sumerians, the Phoenicians. They're
Right. So
they're
I have a
tied to
little
the
bit
hip.
of information.
They're tied to the hip with the Jewish people. Ancient Phoenician is identical to ancient Hebrew.
I have a little bit of information that might be of interest. When I was doing the presentation on the archaeology, Nick noted the Kentucky coffee tree had a similar neighbor from Italy, a similar, I guess, genus, and otherwise it doesn't have anything in the area. So there's a German and an Italian variety of the species. So wherever these people were coming from that originally transplanted it, and it could be tropical or it could have come from Europe. But there's no way that it just appeared out of nowhere. I'll let you all continue to speculate there. But I mean, the Phoenician, as far as I've seen, Phoenician evidence isn't very strong. But you can make your argument.
Well, the shape of the ingots that they found in the bottom of Lake Michigan, they're the same shapes of ingots, of copper ingots, that they find in ancient Europe or ancient Middle East.
It's more. It goes deeper than that. You know that the copper itself has a certain purity, and it's only found here in Michigan.
Well, the purity thing with Michigan copper is it has silver in it. No other copper has that. No other copper around the world anywhere has any silver content in it, like Michigan does.
But we can artificially make it, like silver and copper. Of course, probably, right?
Well, that's what they call
orichalcum. You can smelt it.
That's a legendary orichalcum from Atlantis. Silver and copper or gold and copper. That's orichalcum.
Okay. So what is mana?
Sorry?
What is mana? Let's make some mana. Let's make it rain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so we have a strong suspicion, based on multiple lines of evidence, that the Michigan copper was produced by transmutation from a thunderbolt event. Now, if the Atlanteans also built the Great Pyramid as a colonial outpost for another part of their empire, then presumably the actual Atlantis, again, I presume at the Azores, they must have been masters of electricity, which would explain why they were, quote, punished by the gods. Now, how would that happen? If they were establishing connections using electrum pyramid cats, and they established, constant Birkeland currents along the 30 degree latitude, and one of those got overloaded, it's possible that the mid-Atlantic rift opened up, and there was buckling, and that was causing, which would mean that the legends about them destroying themselves would be true. Now that's all a lot of guessing, but what if they were producing their orichalcum via electrical transmutation? I'll let you guys speculate in that direction.
Well, any sufficiently advanced culture seems like it's on the precipice of both destruction and advancement at the same time, because of the liberties that come out of advancement. There's people. Okay, so if you take for example, if you keep doing something the same way, not much progression. You change and you change and you do something a little uncomfortable that might be a little risky or taboo in your day, and risk equals reward. No risk, no reward. So with liberties and being free and being able to have a choice to do what you want, you get all of these freedoms, and you get all this change that comes with it, and this change and this lust for more technology ultimately comes out of the gut root of realizing that if you stay the same and you just do the same old thing, you're not going to advance. But if you keep climbing towards the heavens and climbing towards all of these crazy ideals, civilization advances. And once it becomes so advanced, it's right teeter-tottering on the verge of collapse. Just like genius or savants teeter-totter between insanity and greatness. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
I mean, that's all, of course, philosophically extremely interesting, especially mimsically speaking. If you did you want to go in a mimsical direction, I guess. But my main gist was, I was hoping that somebody was going to talk about if they had any historical proofs or lines of speculation to do with the orichalcum and the transmutation. But I don't really care, because that's an interesting discussion too. I mean, the whole point of the MIMS philosophy is it's birthed out of the cosmology. So we're certainly, able to go and start talking about this. In one of the new, theorems. There's two new theorems that have come out in the papers as I've been writing. One is you could call it L3 or L4 theory, which you'll see what that is. But the other one was the PIM brain. And it's not that ultimately that different than what's been proposed in the certain segments of the quantum physicists or even the string theorists. Although the difference here is these brains aren't mathematical brains that just bounce together. This PIM brain is actually a stratum of the place where the counter space is bubbling up into the ether, and then the ether is then producing these particles, these subatomic particles that become part of us. So, anyways, that's one of the things. So, when we have any kind of discussion of membrane, whether we're talking about a MIMS or we're talking about a membrane, we're talking about an interchange of energy. Now you're indicating something that's very Eastern philosophy asserted, that with all extreme behaviors, you're going to get an extreme counter, and you're postulating that this kind of advancement, or in general, the law of evolution is showing people and animals living on the edges of things is where they evolve. So a society that is constantly evolving, constantly pushing, is also approaching the brink of its own demise. Yeah. Now, that's philosophical. So the question is it inevitable that if they built their Great Pyramids on the 30-degree latitude, that they would have been destroyed? Now, I'm not sure that that's necessarily true. We don't know what happened to the civilization that built the Great Pyramids. They may have, starved because of desertification. Obviously, the machine itself was ruined when the King's Chamber blew out, a foot, and they couldn't get a new. They didn't think about this. They couldn't get a big new granite coffin in there, right? Because there wasn't any room to get one to fit the chamber. So, but we don't know what happened to them. They may have had an uprising of idiots, like they had at Alexandria, that came along and burned the society down. We don't know exactly what happened to that civilization. But what if they had built? Well, hold on. What if they had built the 30-degree the Great Pyramid in Thailand or something? Is there any proof that it would have destroyed the civilization? Because if that's true, this is bad news for those of us who like electronics and electrical civilization, right? I mean, you might as well just abandon the whole thing, like the Choctaw or something, and go back into Chaco civilization. Just go back into the wilderness. Go ahead.
So, why do you think that the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber was moved a foot?
No, it's not that the so-called sarcophagus was moved. It was blown up. There's a chunk missing. The whole room, the walls were pushed out a foot. So there was an explosion inside the chamber.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, you know how much force it takes to move stones like that a foot? It wasn't a small explosion. It was a problem. And I don't reckon they could get the machine working again. Would be my guess. And then after a couple of generations, nobody would remember how it worked. They may not have remembered how to produce the acids, but we don't know exactly how long they were using brick pits to produce anything, or melting down bowls, or however the process worked. We don't know anything about the process, how they produced these acids. We only have the remnant material and the anodes with the oxidation, and we don't really even understand how we have some idea of how the bafflers work to create the resonances for the maser, but we don't really understand, why for example, the angle, just the very angle of those long, basically they're square tunnels that cut through rock at a very unusual angle and through much difficulty. Why did they choose that specific angle? Now that science is arcane and so far lost. My friend at the Rolls-Royce Engineering, he thinks that they have, but I don't know how much Rolls-Royce Engineering is willing to put into resources for him to actually do simulations on that. Now, Chris Dunn is going to be coming out with an updated book, but I don't know when that's coming out. It could be in the next year or 2 years. I don't honestly know. I mean, I could try and find out from Eric, but he's real cagey, and getting him come on this show has been a little bit difficult. But if Birkeland was correct, and there was that the reason that the pyramids were put at that 30-degree marker is because of the connection to these, I guess it would be some form of Van Allen belt, then presumably this advanced civilization would want to put it in many places. But if their home base was in the Azores or somewhere in that vicinity, and it was along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, maybe they did actually cause buckling. I don't know. I don't honestly know. But transmutation appears to be the way that the Michigan copper was made so pure. Or Rick, did you have a different? Did you have a different take on why the Michigan copper was so pure? Is he here still?
I'm not sure if he's there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you go.
I was muted. I'm getting ready to go.
Do you have a different take on why the Michigan copper was so pure, or were you thinking transmutation?
No, it's obviously been transmutated. It's sitting right in the middle of the supposed impact zone of a comet. Everybody like Graham or Randall Carlson and Antonio Zamora or whatever, they're all talking about comet that hit the North American continent at the Great Lakes area. So, but we all know that it wasn't a comet, that it was a thunderbolt.
Right. Well, in this case, an arc event, right? Not a Paradian thunderbolt, an arc event. You're talking about an actual
a thunderbolt of the gods, not a Paradian thunderbolt.
Yeah. Which body do you think? Because I've postulated it for the moon, because it's our closest body, and we see all sorts of etching. Do you have a different one in mind? Do you think it's like more ancient?
The moon was only captured 2300 BC. It can't be the moon if we're talking 9000 BC.
Right. Okay. So you're talking about an older, or even more primordial time, like formation of mountain chains, that kind of time. So you're thinking that this arc may have even been the original star, or a proto Saturn, or what?
It may have been when we disconnected, and then Jupiter came into the picture and threw a thunderbolt at us.
That's entirely possible.
The first one that happened at 12,900 BC.
Do you guys
and then there was another one that happened at 11,600 BC.
Mankind started going to war 7,000 years ago, and then between 7 and 5,000 years ago, the Sahara Desert started dying, and we have that Reshat formation. So
mankind started going to war when the Purple Dawn dropped.
Right. So you're thinking that the Purple Dawn would have dropped when we exited the glow of the three gods that the triple godhead that we were still floating around, and now we're only on Jupiter.
Or sorry, not 11,000 BC, 11,900 or 600 years ago. The timelines match up with pulse meltwater 1A and 1B, and they show that there was a devastating event somewhere on the planet at that time to release two flows of water across the North American continent. It must have been as described in the Mahabharata, when the gods threw a thunderbolt and killed two groups of people, two cultures of people, two civilizations of people, two races of people.
Let's step the people through. Okay, so we have Shamash, or Israel. It starts to break apart, becomes proto-Saturn and maybe proto-Jupiter. We don't really know if anything came out of Jupiter, but certainly a large body that has zigzag lines. Okay, and then out of proto-Saturn comes Neptune. And the three start circulating about each other. Then they form a conjunction in a Lagrangian arrangement, makes a peace symbol, looks like God. We're going around it, makes this asymmetric Alwyn. So are we still in the purple glow at that time, you think? Or do you think
No, the purple dawn
back and forth?
The purple dawn dropped when Saturn and the sun saw each other for the first, or felt each other for the first time, when their heliopauses touched.
You mean the beginning of the splitting of Shamash, or the end of the electrical charge?
Shamash hadn't split yet.
Okay, all right. So during the egg, so the egg is still up there. We're still in the purple dawn.
The purple dawn had just dropped because Saturn's heliosphere touched the Earth's heliosphere, and the purple dawn basically is the Earth inside the corona of a
Right. Well, but
a brown dwarf star, right?
Obviously,
So
kind of a prolonged event overall. So the Columbian rock art, we see the anode tufting on the protosphere as it's splitting left, and we see the zigzags of what's going to become Jupiter on the right. Are you saying that the purple dawn has already dropped at that point, or it's about to drop when it explodes?
Definitely. And when we're seeing all of this fancy stuff in the sky and people are writing it down on stone, we're now inside the cometary glow. You know how comets they create an atmosphere around them.
So you mean aurora, basically worldwide aurora? You're implying?
Well, no, it's not. It's
larger than that.
We're way larger than that. It's encompassing Saturn even. It's massive.
Fair enough.
It's Saturn displaying as a comet coming into the solar system, glowing like a comet.
More likely.
Where the plasma pinch is. You know, right at that plasma pinch where that Lagrangian point is, or no, that's another Lagrangian point, is it? What's the name of that?
Where the Lagrangian arrangement
Bennett pinch.
The Lagrangian arrangement is a short-term solution. Now, based on the asymmetric Alwyn group, there may not have been a body in the center. It may have been a pinch, because you have the different vectors of the plasma streaming in, and it appears only in the British Isles they recorded as like symmetric. But in Kentucky, they recorded it both ways, where it was asymmetric on the left, asymmetric on the right, and symmetric in the middle. Now the skull map out of Göbekli Tepe shows it in a certain direction, and then the Ohio River Valley, like Eagle Mound, they have it on the opposite side, meaning we were rotating around this structure. So the question, and then obviously that forms a pole between the two extremes in the middle, and then you have two bodies on the outside. Now this is a temporary arrangement, and I can't tell if this arrangement came after the initial three-body problem started, because when they first emerged from each other, as you see on the Vulture Stone in Enclosure D at Göbekli Tepe, when they first emerged, I don't see any indication that they would have immediately been in a Lagrangian arrangement, but they should have been circulating in some kind of haphazard way. We're accelerating around. I would imagine we were still in the anode glow at that time, but it would be dying. It would be a dying glow I'm not saying the sun siphoned away that charge, but I would say that the charge started to find different resting places, so that each of the bodies retain their own power. Now, in the Ramayana, it says specifically that Rama and Lakshmana had to that the monster, the one-eyed monster, which was Neptune, reached out with his arms and grabbed them, and then they they shot him with arrows, pacified him, and he became a god, and became a third brother. So Neptune still retains the fastest winds of all the climate of the non-solar body. So obviously, it received a large amount of charge. We have no idea how much the planet Uranus, which should be actually Hades, we don't know what it brought in.
Well,
but there was a change, and I don't know when the purple dawn exactly fell. All I'm saying is that we know that war, as far as we can tell, began in South America 7,000 years ago, and then swept the whole world, became warlike, and then between 7,000 and 5,000 years ago, the Sahara Desert basically died. The savanna died and became desert, and there's a Reshat formation. But I don't know if that Reshat formation is a related cause of that thunderbolt, or if it's a more antiquity, like during the genesis of the entire planet, because it appears that different size events, of course, would have a much more exponential amount of charge involved, and therefore exponential more current involved. So I don't know exactly when that event would be. The thunderbolts got smaller as time went on, because the bodies got smaller, Mars being the smallest one.
Well, you have to go back to the ancient Egyptians to find out when that happened. In the first time, Zep Tepi, that ended Zeb Tepi, that event, the Rishtat. That ended the Egyptian dynasties that were very advanced, more advanced than we are, obviously, because they manipulated stone and in ways that we can't today.
How do you know that wasn't from the Venus event? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, how do we know that there wasn't an arc event? Because the water suddenly dropped, right?
Well, because the Venus event seems to have been centered on the on the Dead Sea area, wiping out Sodom and Gomorrah and a couple of other places. I think Zoan, which is what was the original capital of Egypt? Not Thebes, Tyrus or something like that. The Bible called it Zoan, Zoan, and that place was destroyed. And Bright Insight just did a video of that destructive event. Jimmy from Bright Insight, I just watched the video that, you know.
I mean, they just keep saying Memphis on the internet.
No, it's not Memphis. It's hang on a second. Not Memphis.
Yeah, but the problem is Jimmy does a lot of like immediate, like from a speculation without lines of evidence, has immediate conclusions. So I'm not saying that he can't provide us more,
No, he's just presenting. He was just presenting the fact that they found the site, Tanis. That's it.
Yeah,
Tanis, the city of Tanis, where the world's largest stone statue lays in pieces, where the whole city, when back in the 1800s, if you see a picture of it, it's got fucking statues, little, like smaller statues sticking out of the half out of the ground, half in the ground, rubble everywhere. I mean, this place was devastated, like, and that was the Venus event. That was the Exodus, and we know the date of that was around 2000, 3000 BC, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, basically, Velikovsky dated in 2600
So that
BC.
That was right around the same time that the moon got captured, and Venus and Mars were. Venus and Mars's orbits were intersecting Earth's orbit. It was,
and if people
a
are
scary
curious
time
about if those datings are reliable, the thing is that we have from North American archaeology a lot of these boundary events that match up, and they don't. The North American archaeology, they don't know any of this stuff, right? So they're not biased by Egyptology per se. They're just out there dating this stuff and assuming that it's all stone culture, and they're coming up with these boundary events that and timelines that just happen to match up with our theories.
Yeah.
So it's very useful because they can't hardly argue with us, and so they just ignore it because the answers are too scary for them to speculate with. But they come up with these boundary events that are very useful for us in our cosmological work.
Well, Peter Jupp, he shows us that there's been 5 events in the Middle East, 5 major events, like that leave like a black
What's the name of the
layer
special that people need to? Because yeah, I mean,
I can't remember the name of it. It's
Gareth went over the black mat layer. That people should refer to that video and hopefully.
Well, the black mat layer that is worldwide,
right,
is probably the breakup event, and the waters waters being delivered to the earth.
Well, the first water
from Saturn. When we gained our ocean.
Right, Inky in the New World Order maintains that there were multiple of these. Right, there were various high carp floods and deluges, and the Egyptians.
Well, some of the floods were.
Don't remember.
some of the floods were due to a flip, the earth flipping.
Right.
That's
exactly.
that's one of the floods.
Yes.
And high winds and all of that has been described in ancient texts that came along with the floods. So that's a flip. And then another one is when we disconnected and the heavens opened up.
Well, and another one was we touched the left side of Enki, which is probably the so-called Noah event or the Atrahasis event, because obviously they were observing, hey, we're going to get close to Saturn, and in his dream, Uputnashim realizes that we're going to touch and builds a boat, but that wasn't the only event like that, and that's what the Egyptian priest told Solon, is that you Greeks have forgotten how many of these events actually have happened.
They said
which
3.
is yeah, and that scares modern people, but that's because modern people are not seeing that there's a consistent change of a downgrading in the strength of these events, and to now where and the moon is now getting further away. So even if the moon is building up charge, the breakdown voltage for it to break the permeability of free space, or at least of the atmosphere that surrounds Earth, the moon, it gets less and less likely for it, unless the sun itself receives a massive amount of charge and it overwhelms the Earth.
The only way that I think
that could happen.
The only way I think the moon could discharge to the Earth would be that it would have to leave our magnetic field and then have to come back in. Because once it's in our magnetic field, it shares Earth's charge.
Yeah, but it's sharing it in a non-neutral way. You could tell that because it's constantly facing.
Yeah, but again, it would take a trip into the.
No, I don't agree.
Into the solar wind to charge it up. It would take a trip into the.
Oh well, what I just say? If the sun received a massive influx of charge from a much larger event from it, like something from the chimney or the Pleiades or some larger.
That wouldn't be fun.
No, it wouldn't be fun, because if it discharged, not only would the sun change, it's potentially becoming white hot, but then it could discharge all that energy into our atmosphere.
Well, if it received more charge, it would shrink and it would become white hot.
Yeah, it would be very hot. We would all need to live under the ground by several hundred feet, and even then, I don't know that mammals would survive.
I got a question for Rick here.
What's that?
Or for everyone, anybody in the group here. But since you were talking, and you know a lot of these dates, or you have hypothesized a lot of these dates with evidence and stuff around the world, have you taken some of your evidence and looked at the Indra cycles, or not Indra, the Yuga cycles? I know we talked about it before. We used to talk about it in the electric view, but we're coming out of the Kali Yuga and going into the Dwarpa Yuga, and maybe you have some stuff to talk about pertaining to that, or Chinese cycles too.
Apparently, the Yugas last 25,000 years. Each Yuga is 25,000 years long.
Okay.
So, I think that's just fanciful thinking on their part, making up a system of yugas, and it's just they're
trying to guess when it'll happen.
Yeah, exactly, and they're trying to add it into the past to tie everything together and make a long past that it just didn't exist. Like, humans have only been here for 250,000 years, so that's how many cycles. That's 10 cycles. 10
But
yugas.
What if they're tapping into the greater Akashic memory, or the morphic resonance from Sirius A and B in the fields of other humans that we've had exist over there, or something, life cycles?
Well, I don't know, but
I mean, they're tapping into something. I mean, I don't necessarily discard it, because
well, it doesn't have to be other humans. It can be just tapping into the Akashic itself. They can gain that information.
We could, we have a lot of very sensible people and the so-called indigo children, etc. They could be connecting not only the earthly spirits and Judeo-Christian angels and stuff. They could be tapping into the beings that are far, far away. That's the problem with quantum non-location, non-locality, and with synchronicity entanglement. The implications are very severe. Potentially, we could be being infiltrated. We might not even have little green men on the way. They could be on the other side of the Milky Way, and basically trying to control our civilization. Who knows? For shits and giggles sort of situation. We don't know. We don't know enough about how the physics actually works in order to make good guesses. But I can tell you this: ever since we've been doing electrical work, especially since we've been broadcasting in space, our civilization has been going through definitely some interesting mental development. I'm not saying that they're necessarily in all ways worse than what was happening previously, because we had the Dark Ages. But we were on an enlightenment train. We were rationalism, etc. A lot of the problems that we have now, you could blame purely on tribalism and just self-destruction. Like, humans are inherently self-destructive. This is a well-known psychological issue. It may have something to do with the limbic brain. But we've also definitely seen some real problems. Ever since we started broadcasting radio waves into space, it didn't help with the first broadcast that we were sending with Hitler. But we shouldn't ever make the assumption that it isn't related. And we need more data, because I just don't think we have enough data. I mean, this cosmology has really struggled to find footing and acceptance. And now we finally have a textbook, and then we'll give Ben some credit. He has this little weather book or whatever, and we're finally getting our stuff together. And satellites going out that are they can limit the James Webb to a certain bandwidth. We're still going to find what we're saying, and the implications are then going to be, you're responsible for things that you didn't know you were responsible for. That's going to be the outcome of that. There's going to be truths that aren't pleasant. That's my assertion, at least. I'm not sure if that's the direction you were going with the Akashic part.
Well, I mean, the whole thing ties into. Have you looked into the calendrics, like the global calendrics or astronomy, to where, like, adding Chinese calendar, like just tying other calendars in to draw more people to the electric universe, to have dates that pop up in their calendric systems that are important, and disaster cycles, so they all line up.
How do you avoid losing the scientific edge when you do it that way? The nice thing about the Chinese system is, even though it's astrology, it's based on time now, because they knew in the ancient days about the rearrangement. They specifically sent out astronomers because the farmers didn't know when the equinox was. Now, anybody knows anything about farmers would not have issues with when to plant. They would know these things in their bones. So that everything rearranged, and so they recreated their astrology. I'm not sure, like, combining it with other more ancient astrologies is necessarily going to be helpful. I mean, I don't see where the scientific benefit would be.
No, just the cycles of their calendars, like their timescales for the flood, global catastrophe events.
Oh, the earlier stuff. I think Velikovsky did that. I mean,
so
has anybody done a better study than Velikovsky?
My thing is, one of my things is China. They had a picture of the southern sky at night, the stars. They knew the fucking southern sky at night. How? I'm going to tell you how. The earth flipped. China was in the south at one point. Earth flipped.
But I've shown...
They gained the knowledge of the stars in the north. That's how they could have a complete book of the stars.
Couldn't they just copy someone else's book of the South, though, and call it their own? Stealing a map, killing someone,
Don't forget, during this flip, the Earth was expanding. The continent was the main continent on the planet, which was Pangea, which is not billions of years old, only a few 100,000 years old. split apart and started spreading around the surface of the
Well, I
planet.
don't know if I agree with that part, but I will tell you that there is no doubt. There is no doubt that it flipped because we have the mathematics from the Ohio River Valley, and we could be quite proud of what we have here in this side
But
of
we
the
know
world
the Earth was smaller and drier.
Well, we do know that, but we don't know the exact expansion rate. You know, we don't know because it appears to.
No, it started.
No, it's
too.
It's constantly expanding as we speak.
Yes, it is, but the rate is different at all times. Like we don't have.
Yeah, the rate
you can see
was
from the Pacific spreading that you know right now the Pacific is expanding at an incredible rate.
Well,
but it's still not expanding it at a rate that like
I
maintain the sudden upthrust of Patagonia.
I maintain when the purple dawn dropped, that's when the Earth started receiving way more energy from the system that it just joined into, along with Saturn. And
I don't think it's just joined in. I think that it, and I think our entire solar
we were in a polar configuration for 3,000 years as the sun was being pulled into the solar system. Then Saturn broke up. Then Saturn broke up, and we started to separate into orbits around individual orbits around the sun. And then, because we were so close together, orbiting in the same area, the charge of the bodies were pretty close to the same, spread out all around the whole grouping. They started to to come close together and discharge with each other, changing their potentials to the sun, making them move out to the same potential of the magnetic field lines. The magnetic field lines carry potential, and if your planet is a high potential, it'll be in close in the inner magnetic field lines. If it has less potential, it'll be out further away from the center.
The only thing I would say different is that there's a little bit of precision in there, where we can see based on the evidence. I just have to keep pointing that out. That for a time the system, as it split up into these different bodies, we were going around those as well. That's why they were gods. That's why Poseidon was our lord, or Shiva was our lord for a time, but that time was not forever. And that part is a really important. I don't know why people keep wanting to leave it out, because when you talk about the origins of religion, which, let's face it, religion is a huge force even still in our world, and it doesn't appear to be going away. It's becoming morphed into scientism. But that's a huge part of the development of the human consciousness. And it may very well be that it's actually a revelation, or it may be that we were guessing about what it meant. Either way, the father-son motif came out. The
two brothers,
the two brothers, and the betrayal story got its origin. The female goddess who could rule it all, and then she became vengeful and hateful of her husband, and then turned into
with the long hair,
all that stuff. Yeah, but originally it started with Saturn, because Saturn was castrated and turned from a brother and father into a woman, and then a scornful woman. Hera becomes scornful, right? And so there's some kind, and you're not necessarily wrong about it. Mars is a key too, because I mean it is ostensibly possible that our civilization was in the northern hemisphere of Mars, and then they came down and became what became later the Sumerians, and that the origin of our culture, our particular obsessed technological contract legal based culture, that it is actually from somewhere else. That is ostensibly possible, even if Enki obviously was not an individual, because we can see that he, biologically, that's impossible to be your own older brother. So the question is, how would we even solve that about Mars? Why are we so obsessed with time? I mean, NASA, it's almost like the elite are obsessed with getting NASA to like prove it out that there was civilization on Mars. And that I find that very fascinating, especially given all of our belief systems in terms of like Superman stories, all that kind of like Krypton. It, it it is also possible that such a civilization would have had a colony on Metis or whatever the name of it was that was destroyed, Kingu, Tiamat, whatever the body was that was blown up, or if it was more than one body, it's ostensibly possible that such a civilization would have been there too. In which case, maybe Atlantis itself was only one colony of many, and then the ancient Egypt, of course, the beginning of the King's List, not the later stuff, with all the incest and whatnot. That maybe they were potentially a very advanced astronomical civilization, much like ours. I don't know. I find it interesting. We don't know what ME is from the Sumerian. We don't really know. If you go and look, they probably don't translate. And yet, I was writing about, and it ended up showing up in my paper as mass energy. And I'm thinking, like, that's not necessarily far off from the idea that's in the Sumerian, right? They were battling over this ME. Well, what the heck is the ME? I mean, does anybody here have any idea precisely what the tablets of destiny and the ME are? I mean, I don't think it's exactly established.
Well, we know Vril, for example, is life energy.
Oh, good morning.
Oh, yeah. We also yeah, I was just sitting here catching up to where you guys were. The thing is that the Aboriginal cultures in Australia talk about campfires. The stars were campfires which had people camped around them. If we look at some of the mythology, there's indications that human beings came to this region of the galaxy from Sirius, from a variety of stars. So it's almost like the solar system was a place where people came and colonized. And according to some of the
vacation destination.
No. It was more a case of we came here on a permanent basis. But the stuff that I've been exposed to, and there's not a lot of proof of it, is that when the solar system consisted of 12 planets, 4 of those were inhabited. One is now the asteroid belt because it was destroyed. Mars was inhabited. Earth was inhabited. And I don't know, Tiamat maybe is the other one that was inhabited. So according to the mythology information that I've had, the result was that Earth was the 4th rock from the sun. Then you had the 5th rock, which is now the Mars, and then you had the asteroid belt, which was the 6th rock, and then you had the rest of the planets. One of the planets in the inner solar system got chucked into the sun. One of the planets got destroyed, and the other two the other one that's gone missing has been ejected, which is what they're looking for, planet X, and it could well be in a long period orbit somewhere around the Oort cloud, but there is a wall where there's actually a gap in the Oort cloud that they've found, and they're suspecting that there's a planet in orbit around that in that location. Now, has it been detected? Well, in 1984, I think it was, with the infrared survey they did, they found something close to the solar system that appeared to be in orbit. And it was, came out, caused a little bit of a ruckus for a couple of months and then disappeared completely from the science literature. It's almost like nobody wants to talk about it. You've got an acronym that a lot of people have been saying about NASA, never a straight answer. And it appears that NASA has been told to airbrush out structures that they have discovered and photographed in the solar system to ensure that the general public don't go nuts about evidence that exists elsewhere in the solar system that shows that the solar system was inhabited. And people like Richard Holgan and others have kept going and saying, here are the actual original satellite images, the photographs they took. Please explain how come these structures occur. There are every indication of human habitation.
At the risk of driving Nick a bit crazy, could you be postulating here that there is an airbrushed Nemesis planet revolving around in the current solar system, which may have been come in with the sun when we approached, etc. That is home to civilization that can fly electrospheres, etc. Could you be making that assertion, and that we're cousins in some way?
Yeah, exactly. My son, Aaron.
Do you have any evidence, though? That's the issue.
Well, the evidence is the behavior of the people who want to impose the secrecy.
Yeah, but you know,
just let me explain.
They'll keep secrets for any reason. So, I want some evidence. You have a specific book or something?
My son came up with a story a decade ago about an M-class star coming into the solar system and establishing itself in the orbit of the asteroid belt Mars area. And with my colleague who has contacts with a few people that care about this sort of stuff, we put a question to some of the researchers out there, and they said, is it possible for an M-class star to arrive in the solar system and establish itself in a stable orbit where the Earth was doing a figure eight around the sun and this M-class star? It had quite an interesting weather climate system for the solution. And anyway, we asked all these questions, and they went off, and one of the researchers, said, well, this is an interesting idea. Let's play around with it. And he did his modeling and using the gravitational model and all the rest of it. And he said, if the star comes into the solar system in a 30-degree angle, I assume to the ecliptic, yes, it would be possible for an M-class star to appear in the solar system and locate itself in the orbit that Aaron was suggesting. And under those circumstances, there'd be a lot of solar planetary orbit dislocation because of it. We'd see the thunderbolts come back and everything. And as a result of that, the modeling this guy was doing changed. He changed his title from astrophysicist to stellar engineer, because he came up with different ways of understanding how orbits work. And when he cottoned on to the claim that I was making about electrodynamics driving the system more strongly than gravity, everything went quiet. So,
all right, I hate to be hard on you, but I asked for evidence. Do you have evidence?
I have evidence that comes out of what people told me. Now, they're either lying to me outright, or they know. And if they know, and you look at the behavior of what's going on, they're preparing for a change to our environment that's going to be dramatic. And they're trying to keep everybody in the secret, not knowing what's going on.
Well, no, we agree with that, but that's not really.
I'd just like to make an observation as well. We mentioned Richard Hoagland. This guy he gets pictures of weird things happening on the planets. But his main problem is he's really crap at image processing. He's basically taking these raw data images and expressing them using the wrong image format, and that's why these artifacts are popping up all over the place in his images.
I wouldn't expect if the Great Pyramid culture, if we don't have any tools or power tools or anything left after all the successive floods and looting and stuff, I wouldn't expect anything to be left on Mars from an event that excavated the entire northern hemisphere and ostensibly sucked it up into Venus. I mean, I would say all the stuff would be on Venus except to be all melted down and destroyed. So I don't know that we'll ever get any.
We know from the atmospheric evidence of Mars that 2 cobalt-salted nuclear weapons went off and obliterated its atmosphere.
We talked about this. You can get that stuff from transmutation from the arc event. It's very, very simple. We get transmutation in biological. Garrett's covered this. There's biological transmutation happening because there's particle acceleration inside the DNA.
When this information was first being discovered and talked about by the people who have published it, they were involved in programs, and there was a cafeteria in the place where everybody went to have lunch and all the rest of it. and on a library and a few others. And this guy was, you know, talking to another person in line for the photocopy, and he was talking about all these signatures in the atmosphere of atoms. And the person he was talking to said, "Oh, they got nuked," and then realised that he'd overstepped the mark of, you know, let's keep our information compartmentalised, and went quiet. And it's been recognised. It's been recognised.
Nukes are smaller events than what we're talking about.
Informal presentations, it's been admitted that Mars has suffered 2 massive cobalt bombs of the 6 gigatons or higher salted cobalt bombs, and in that process, the civilization
I don't know how else to explain it to you. If you excavate the entire northern hemisphere, you're way beyond anything nuclear bomb related, man. We're talking.
Fine. That's fine.
Even a Paradian Thunderbolt just down the road here was 5 to 15 times stronger than the Bikini H bomb, and that's just a 56 ray, you know, ionosphere driven. We're talking about an event that would be so much charge would have been excavated. Forget 6 gigatons.
Right.
You're not even in the right
Earth's
order.
ionosphere,
Giga.
If the Earth's ionosphere was fully discharged in a single event, you would have a fair amount of the mass of the planet obliterated and evacuated into space. I don't think the north pole of Mars got hit by anything. What I think happened is that it suffered a massive, massive discharge. Now, whether these are time commensurate
we know that, though. That's already known.
Whether these are time commensurate to a nuclear war that destroyed the surviving population or not is not really part of the deal, because we have no consequential understanding of what the dates were and what the sequence of these events is. None of that's available to us. So we're sitting.
I mean, I hate to be hard, but that's kind of a cop out, because the question was, if you're saying that you're making the statement that NASA may be airbrushing out a home planet that is our cousin, and they may be visiting us, that these aren't secret military projects only, but that there's something, you know, actually visiting from somewhere else, you know, some kind of Alelu, you know, ship like the one in the hieroglyphics there from Mesopotamia. So if that's true, then I would like to see the evidence. That's all I'm saying. I don't think it's unreasonable.
You have the evidence. There's historical evidence that goes back thousands of years of people being visited by sky beings. You have the legends and mythology. You have it carved in rocks, in hieroglyphs, and all the rest. You're saying to me, where's the proof? Where's the proof?
Where's the evidence? I don't need necessarily proof, but
if the carved rock and the mythology and all the rest of it is not good enough proof, then you're playing the game of mainstream science of refusing to accept what is present. Right?
No, I'm asking for something better, because when I look at the rocks, I don't see that. I don't find that in the
you got to look
Ohio
at all
River Valley
the
in Columbia. I don't find that.
You got to look at all.
I'm just saying. I see what Dave Talbot sees. I just see it with a little bit more precision.
Yeah, but Dave Talbot and all the rest of the guys who have published all this stuff haven't got a. If you were to produce a book of all the rocks and all the stories and everything, you would need a shelf that's probably 6 or 7 meters long and 5 shelves high to just record what's there. And even then, you've not got anything. We've got most of the evidence of past civilization on this planet is in the water 300 to 400 meters below the surface. Right? We know nothing about our past. We don't even know what the radiation levels. It's all based on assumptions. And there's no evidence.
We don't know nothing. It's just
we know a lot more than we have available to us, a lot more data than we're prepared to accept, and we know stuff all, really, and we make up our own stories because we can't believe that, you know, if we take the religious point of view, and when I put Ben Johnston, Jordan Peterson's philosophy playlist there, religions have to come from somewhere. right?
Yeah, I know, but I've
And
discussed
what I
with
think,
with
what I really think
the
happened in the
electric
past
universe seems to be the best.
is we had a culture on this earth which is promoted by our myths that this is, we had 4 world ages of high technology. The last one was destroyed when Atlantis disappeared, and we're now into the 5th one. And we think that our cultural advanced system is due for destruction, and it looks very likely it's going to happen. And for our great-grandchildren who survive this event, today's world is going to be a myth. It will not be on part of their...
All right. Well, okay, we've heard your perspective on this. I'd like to hear Nick's response to some of the statements. I'd like to hear. And he's not dying.
Sorry, what?
I'd like to hear your response to some of those statements, because it I don't know. I side mostly on the electric universe side.
I think this chronology is a massive problem. It's basically we don't know anything that happened more than 300 years ago.
Well, that's true.
Certainly 400 years, and it all starts getting a bit bloody sketchy.
That's definitely a problem.
Yeah, and of course, if we've got 600 years missing out this first millennium, 600 years missing out of the first millennium BC up to now, we've got a 500-year hiatus from 1200 BC to 500 BC, which probably there wasn't a hole. So the chronology is a complete mess, but we do have some clues. We've got some clues in some of the architecture at Ravenna. We've got the blue sun there. We've got clues from the epic poets of Homer, because they obviously described the battle of the gods on the battlefields of Norfolk, by the sound of it. And so more and more we've got these clues that we can start to fit together, really. It's like but I mean, even if you look at Mesoamerican history, or lack of it, they think people all kind of disappeared at about 900 AD. These massive settlements appear to have destroyed themselves way before the conquistadors got there, a lot of them. But of course there's a lot of clues in their work, and also it's just we can't fit it together. I think we've got the data. I think it's a matter of us being able to really start locking it together. I think this is the problem. And we are. I mean, just in the last 10 years, to be honest, the research, the historical research, I think it's taken on leaps and bounds, really. The stuff that was kept from us, which has been kind of revealed because of the internet and our access to these various informations. And I think we've got to carry on as we're doing, and follow all these kind of little links, but maybe try and rebuild a chronological ladder, which is free from. I mean, you could take out a few of the sort of more suspect authors, the Roman ones. I mean, there's you've got Plato, Plotinus, and Plotinus, and they're all probably the same guy over a period of 500 years writing. So these things have to be really figured out, and they are being slowly. That's why I recommend you to look at this website that I've just found anyhow. But because if we can link it together with things like the copper production in Michigan, I mean, from what I can see, they weren't mining ores from there. They were getting the massive nuggets like 20-ton nuggets they were dragging out of there, or splitting those up and dragging them in big pieces. And the copper was actually worked cold. They think it wasn't actually ever subject to temperature, even before it was made into tools. As far as the copper experts in Michigan are saying, from what I can glean on the internet.
Well, I'm from Michigan, and I've been up there, and I've done a bunch of. I went on a geology tour up there for college, and one thing that I remember learning is that China absolutely loves Michigan copper, and they have, I think, the world's second largest piece of it. So I don't know what that means about anything, but
used to have the world's largest piece, then they sold it to China.
Yeah, we used to have it.
Yep, China bought it because they know about this stuff.
Yeah, they know about the healing properties of all sorts of different things. You know, they just, yeah.
Agricultural tools, according to Schwarberger's group and Schwarberger himself, should be used in agriculture. In other words, everything we use for agriculture should be copper plated. Copper was a critical element in Egyptian culture. You know, it was the one thing that carried the death penalty if you didn't, return your copper tool. So the issue I have with our past is that there's been corrupted due to war and disease and famine and cultural destruction. But in more modern times, it's been deliberately corrupted because it doesn't fit somebody's belief system, or there's some group that know there's a disaster coming and they don't want anybody to find out about it, because if they find out about it, we'll have the French Revolution happen again, and they're not that keen on having their heads separated from their bodies. There's any number of reasons for lying about the past. You know, imagine if we'd done an archaeological dig and they found some massively effective technology that survived the past, and somebody wants to make a bucket load of money out of it. You know, do you think they're going to lie about the past and make sure that nobody ever figures it out? You know, we have the tobacco industry, the last 6 people on the planet who reckoned that, tobacco smoking didn't cause cancer were the guys who ran the tobacco companies. It's the same with climate change. The most vocal disagreement with human-induced carbon damage to the earth is the oil company guys, the oil company scientists. They're the ones out saying it's all rubbish. The ones that are always downplaying and destroying anybody who comes out with any proof that the mobile telephone network causes environmental damage to the biosphere. The ones who are most trying to blame it on everybody else are the people who are paid by the mobile phone industry to lie about the truth. And this is a fact of the last, 80, 90 years since the Second World War or before. We don't have to look very hard to find evidence that people are prepared to change the story and feed rubbish to the general populace with false pictures about how the societies used to be and everybody walking around in deerskin clothes and all the rest of it. What proof do we have?
We know the history from yesterday, and we don't know the history. They're already changing the past, and we're not even getting the correct narrative from today.
And if we want evidence of it in the modern world, all you have to do is look what China did to the events at Tiananmen Square. Right? Anybody who was born since that date has no knowledge of it. And when they come out of China and discover the rest of the internet, they see these images and they think it's all fabricated. And it was actually produced by the Chinese media in China at the time it happened. And then you got what's going on in Canada, where you got the same thing happening, and that's supposed to be an open and free society that reports the truth. Those days are gone. They really have. And I had to counsel my son yesterday because my middle son, because he's, all worried about what's going on in Ukraine. And I basically said to him, these events have been predicted for a long time. They are now unfolding. And what we've got to do is just do what's right for everybody else. My anger level is like, 1 billion times higher than number 10 because we're no longer able to provide the support to somebody who desperately needs it because some government agency has decided that where he lives is a COVID-free zone, and they're going to prevent anybody who's been unvaccinated from going in there.
Look here. Hey, you want to get this video banned from YouTube?
Well, I'm sorry, guys, but
called the cuckoo. Called the cuckoo.
Well, cuckoo or whatever. What we're getting is a series of events that are coming in there with Nazi application of dictatorial control. And if anybody thinks that Nazis were defeated in 1945, they got rocks in their head because it was just exported. It was exported to Russia and exported to the United States and other locations because they went in there and they pillaged the country and they took away the scientists who were doing this development and forgot conveniently that they were among the heinous group that were killing people. You got people that are putting videos out there saying, well, let's go and grab all these people that might get sick and stick them in a camp just in case. And we'll let them out the camp if they can accept, a supposedly voluntary application of medicine to them because it's voluntary. And if they don't do it, we'll just keep them in the camp until they accept it voluntary. Well, it's not. None of that's voluntary. It's all coercion.
Well, I completely agree. This episode will probably now only be able to go up on Rumble, but we'll try it on whatever. But in general, I was hoping this would be a whimsical and cosmological discussion because obviously all of us could rant right about the cuckoo all day long.
The issue here
I'd like to direct us back. I mean, the Grunch of Giants is a very interesting subject, and I definitely recommend people read, Buckminster Fuller's book. However, I'd like to get us back to, what we were discussing, which is ways of discerning evidence, short of, convincing James Cameron to spend money to go to the bottom of the ocean. Ways of discovering the same smoking guns that we found here in the Ohio River Valley. I'm very proud of the Ohio River Valley. I'd like to see, I'm sure that Michigan's full of many things too that haven't been completely destroyed. So the question will be, how do we get more smoking gun evidence for electrogeology, for
it's going to be
archaeology?
It's going to be super difficult because when you point to the fact that electrical discharges are scalable, and you show them the work of Anthony Peratt, and you point to the glyphs and say this is the same thing but on a massive scale, on a solar system scale kind of discharge, and they still say no, what are you going to do?
What they're asking for is, where's the proof? We haven't seen one of these discharges.
The proof comes in the lab, is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, but
you show them Anthony Peratt's work, high energy plasma discharges in a laboratory where they have to be in a bunker fucking 1.5 miles, 2 miles away because this shit is so fucking deadly. Well, what happened to us in the past?
Well,
people forget about the Day of the Dead.
Small interjection. Can people see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So I'm just going to scroll this and read it while
we forget the fact that the Egyptians had the Day of the Centipede, where they say fucking a great number of the population died. Well, these are attributed to these plasma discharges and the multiple torus fields that were generated.
You got two issues here. First of all, that what you're talking about occurs in a lab when we haven't seen it out there in the real universe. Therefore, it didn't happen.
We have seen it out in the universe.
I know where
I'm talking
about the people.
We've seen cosmic lightning.
people are ignoring this stuff because they have not, with their own eyes, seen it. And because they're in the club of we're going to play the gravity model or whatever other cult belief system they want to be in science, they suppress and remove and call pseudoscience anything that disagrees with their thinking, right? Look at
cosmology has actually documented an arc lightning discharge in space.
Yeah,
thousands of light years long.
And what did they call it? And what did they describe it as after they figured out that they were wrong? They changed their story. They didn't attribute it to electromagnetic discharge at all.
Yeah, obviously, but we know that's what it was.
Right. You found in America, you found skeletons
and
of people.
That's going to the point that Raymond was trying to make. How do we, give them the evidence? When we give them the evidence, they just say no. That's bullshit.
Well, we've done it in this script. We've done it in this script.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we've done it in this script to ourselves because someone will make a statement and the first statement that is a response to us, where's the proof of it? We've got mythology that describes events that occurred. And we say,
sort of like people say, where's the proof of the attempt of the New World Order to decline? To decline population. Here we go. I mean, that's what's on the screen here is proven documentation that shows it. If people don't want to find, I mean, the New World Order has produced plenty of evidence. So it's out there. If people are willing to look, they have to open their eyes. If they don't open los ojos, then what the hell? What can you do for them?
Raymond, and to that point, you got to watch that video I sent you. It's all about
the nanotech. I have an unbelievable day, but I will do my best.
Well, you don't have to watch it today. I mean, today, tomorrow, and a couple of days, whatever.
No, I'll get to it.
You get to it. But you got to watch it because it's a doctor showing us all of this stuff, and it's other doctors finding this stuff.
Yes, and I'm not surprised, that there probably were U.S. biolabs in the Ukraine that Russia targeted and blew up.
Doctors in Germany, doctors in Spain.
The thing is, this battle for the truth is part of the battle for the soul of humanity and the future. As the saying in science fiction goes, fight the future. And the future we're fighting is the dystopic. And also it's racist.
Klaus Schwab can be quoted in that video saying that this is an attempt to bring humanity and machines together. This is an attempt to.
Isn't that somewhat an evidence
to unify everything together?
That we've contacted some kind of dimension of consciousness. We may be actually receiving back an invasive.
It's even saying that these micro routers assign an IP address to you.
Well, I'm not surprised. That's of course what they would love to do is track you like human cattle.
Well, they download them.
I got news for them. Hold on, I got to do my rant thing.
It gathers and downloads information.
Hold on, I got to amp up the people. If there's an FBI agent or anyone listening, and you really want some, you know where to find me. All right, I've been in the system ever since I worked at the DoD. Come get some, because you people are not going to control the earth. That's period. And if you're a listener and you feel, do your martial arts, get your firearm, get ready, because these kind of documents, this goes back to 1974, what's on the screen. And what's happening now is relevant. If you study history, it's not even just the last 30, 40 years. I mean, it goes way back. And it's a continuous thing. But my conjecture, what I'm saying is we may have contacted some kind of force or some kind of thing that may be altering people's consciousness. A lot of people are talking to me all the time about, I feel like something's happening to me. I don't feel normal. One guy told me he's suddenly having pedophilic thoughts, and he's not a pedophile. And so, like, he basically just wants to starve himself to death. He's tired of living. That's how bad it is. Yeah. This attack is great. Now, if it's coming from HAARP, I'd like to see evidence of that. I'd like to see that it can do that. If it's coming through, 5G wireless, I'd like for somebody to find the channel that I remote viewed and saw, but I'd like to see evidence. That's all. As a scientist, I'm just asking for evidence. I'm not saying proof. I'm asking for evidence, Robert. Evidence.
Well, you're not going to get evidence because they're hiding it in
okay.
entire ocean of manure. These people, their only function in life is to just lie, right? You look at you've heard statements along the lines of, when do you know the politician is actually telling the truth? When their mouth no longer moves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have been saying these sorts of things for a long time. We know that the organisations involved in psyops and all the rest of it have been out there deliberately lying. You know, you look at the civil rights movement and what happened. The FBI went in there and basically perverted them and encouraged them to go out there and be terrorists inside the American environment. They've done this everywhere. You know, the first thing to shut down a protest group is put in a few of
Guns.
your own, walking around with Nazi flags and guns and doing things that the protest group don't like. And what happened in Canada recently was those particular people got run off by the protesters.
Total false.
No, hang on a second. Wait a
total
second.
False flag.
The guy carrying the Confederate flag was run off. They told him, put that thing away. The other guy with the Nazi flag was holding it up and saying, "Do you want this for your country?"
Yeah, and
that
then you have
is the only reason that flag,
okay.
and then
that looks
he
bad.
was told to put that away.
Yeah, that looks bad.
Well, it looks
Still,
bad, but you know,
he was yelling.
At some point, we got to stop worrying about how things look and start talking about how things are, and hold people accountable for lies.
Well,
right?
that's what I'm saying.
Well,
They're lying about.
No, I get you.
They're lying about the guy that with the German flag, with the Nazi
They're
flag,
lying.
holding it up.
It wasn't a false flag. It was a form of negative protest. I get it.
It was him saying, "This is coming if you fucking if we can't change this."
Right.
And then
that's what he was saying.
Then you have images of Trudeau, the Canadian Premier, signing Nazi-based
Prime Minister.
Yeah, right. That he signed the Nazi flag at one of the meetings he was at. He stated in Parliament that the descendant of a Holocaust survivor was a Nazi. Now you've got to ask yourself the question: who's telling the truth? Under what sense of intelligence and reasonableness does it come that a descendant of the survivor of the Holocaust would be a Nazi? Where's the logic in that? What we're saying is,
but these people don't care about logic, and that's another thing.
Then
are they just infected with
socialist?
Are they just infected with a socialist pathogen, or are they being diluted by a higher force? That is the question that we're having. Or is the higher force actually just the social the solar system electric circuit affecting people's minds? I have this is an issue in the clinic. With every passing day, I get fewer standard, like treat my elbow pain thing, and more people coming in who are either drug-addled, depressed. They're affected by small changes and little things. And it's not even about the koof anymore. It's much more generalized. And as a healer of the ancient way of doing things, I'm looking for the true etymology of what this is going, because that's going to help me to determine a prognosis. And it's not readily clear that it is just because these people are watching too much news or something. That does happen. But it's coming from a big source. And now, what is that source?
My question is this: are you being psyoped?
Am I being what?
Are you subject to a psyop? Are they?
You're asking if the patients are part of the CIA. What are you asking?
I'm asking whether the CIA or whomever is sending patients to distract you with.
That's crazy. That's crazy talk.
Why is it crazy? What better way to get us all questioning whether we got.
I'm not going to live my life wondering whether or not, you know,
well,
the old man who's coming in, who's a veterinarian, who suddenly finds himself like deathly afraid of horses, and depressed ever since November of last year. You know, that he might be, he was in complete misery, man. You know, I've had more people who are entering what's called the dark night of the soul coming in than ever. Usually you get one a year. You know, I'm getting like 3 and 4 in a quarter. You know, it's
yeah,
not,
but Ramon,
this
has a lot to do with COVID and people losing their jobs and people. The suicide rates are up higher than ever.
I agree,
people
but
literally think it's the end of the world, and that's a lot of people do. You know, even a lot of people in this group see a lot of shit coming to surmount to the top here.
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, you never know, but at the same time, that's not the question. The question is at what level, because we were talking about thunderbolts of different scales creating different energetic events, and that's going to affect the size of the scarification on the earth, and it's going to also indicate the different size of the origin of the source, right? And, you know, the direct connection is going to be much more prolific than a magnetosphere induced thunderbolt from Jupiter, and that's going to be bigger than a magnetically or an induced thunderbolt from the moon coming close to the Earth, etc. So now, is there a source that's larger, or is it just hyperdimensional, or what? What evidence do people have? Because I know that they can go over to a channel. I won't say any names of channels. I don't want to disparage any channel, but I will say they can go to a lot of channels on YouTube and hear some seriously wild ass speculation, right? I mean, you know, and you don't know if that person really was abducted, and you know, or if they just subsist on some weird diet and watch a whole lot of stuff and listen to Von Daniken all the time. We don't really know. So, what evidence can we provide to the audience that will differentiate us here at the Pulse? I mean, we need some standards around here. Evidence. I mean, Graham Hancock's book has evidence, right? It's Supernatural. Did everybody here read Supernatural?
Well, I don't.
Nobody?
I don't have the resources necessary to go and buy Graham Hancock's books.
Enter the crickets.
Oh my God. Why? Okay, so you're okay. Did you? There's a free book about the remote viewing program that was done by at the NSA. I mean, have you looked into that? I mean,
right. When I go searching for material, and you
crickets again.
Crickets again. You posted to me that I don't understand why I couldn't find the books that I was talking about when you found them.
Okay, that's good. Bring that up. That's a good subject about what the missing pages.
So I'm going looking for a book that was called, what was it? To do with the spectrum drift, right? I'm trying to find 2 sets of books, I want to find the Bell Labs science paper that they did proving how the Doppler shift stuff works for electromagnetic, and in that process they needed to know the emission rate and the frequency in order to be able to determine variations that occur due to speeding objects in that, you know, for your LiDAR system that determines how fast some vehicle is going, so you can hand out a fine to take lots of money off people, right? So that one is the reason why we have radar detectors of speed. There's a second book that was, I'm going to have to go back and have a look at my papers, but
you're getting. Go ahead and so you're going to talk about.
I was given 2 chapters of a book that was the only location I can find of those particular references on the Pirate Bay, and I can't find it anywhere else. When I do a search, it appears nowhere. Okay, let's do it right now. So I'm going to get on DuckDuckGo. And then hold on. So we're going to do archive.org, and we're going to do, what's it called? Well, I need to find the DuckDuckGo that I did to get it.
No, just what's the name of the?
Well, I
the
can't
subject?
remember on the top. Well, it's no,
On
I
the
can't.
topic of
I've
what?
got it's a book title that I'm after, and I can't remember the title off the top of my head.
Okay, well, who wrote it?
Spectrum Drift.
Spectrum Drift.
No, I'm just trying to find it. I was looking at Spectrum Drift. Bell Labs.
Bell Labs.
Bell Labs. Right, there was a Bell Labs did a report in 1939.
1939.
On Spectrum Drift on the Millikan-Morley stuff.
All right, let's see what we got here. Bell Laboratories record 1939, volume 18, index.
Yeah, well, when I search for it, I don't find it. Now that means multiple things as far as I'm concerned. You know, somebody's playing around with my search engine and I can't find what I'm looking for.
Well, it could just be being buried, but it's possible that they.
Right. Now the other one was a book, which I'm actually trying to fractal density theory. No, fractal density theory of the universe.
All right, let's see here. So let me know if anybody sees it in the table of contents here. New hysteresis model. Wow, that's interesting. This is an interesting document, Bell Laboratories record.
No, when I do these searches, I can't see what you've got on the screen. I can't even find it. When I do I know the fractal density theory universe book exists, but when I do a search, the only reference I have to it is on the Pirate Bay. I know there is matter.
Well, hold on. So now you've given me a specific title. So just a second. What did you call it? Fractal density. What you call it?
Fractal density theory of the universe.
And fractal structure of the universe. What year do you know?
Well, I know it was uploaded into the Pirate Bay in 2013.
I mean, because there's a lot of fractal structure ones that have the word fractal structure. But it has to be fractal density theory.
Put fractal density of the universe in quotes. Just fractal.
Here we go. Here we go. Pirateproxy.live. Fractal density theory.
Right, that's chapters 1 and 2. Where the rest, it's a book that's been printed, so you're not. You can't find it in a library. You'd have to.
Pirate Bay. Here's the piratebay.org.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second.
There should be a reference. Well, when I do it, it's been shut down by government order.
Drop the PDF off the search. See what happens. See what website.
Well, first I'm going to search the Pirate Bay because it's here.
Well, I'm because of my location. I'm completely
Anderson fractal density theory light version 12.12.12, and then there's the one that's just chapters 1 and 2. So I'm going to click the first one. I'm going to click the light version here. It's a torrent, so I don't have torrent. You'll have to torrent it.
Well, I can't even get to the website because it's been blocked by our government because it's promotes piracy.
Does anybody have torrent? I don't do torrent.
But in that paper, in that book, in chapters 1 and 2, is the elements that I sent to you in an email, Ramon. It's in my chapter 4.
Hold on, let me go to the other one. The chapter 1 and 2, pirateproxy.live. Oh, it's also a torrent. All this stuff is torrents, man.
Yeah, well, apologize for this, but in that book is the diagram that was in the email I sent to you, which shows that what the Michelson-Morley experiment assumed, and it describes it. And then it states that experiment didn't produce the result they wanted, and it's a bit like the oil drop experiment. They went in there with a preconceived idea, and they hadn't thought out the experiment well, and they reckoned they found the value for positive charge of a proton, and they haven't. What they found was, what is the charge due to the presence or absence of an electron? An absence of an electron will give you a positive charge. The presence of an electron will give you a negative charge, and that's all they ever measured. So what we've got is that people, who do not want the truth out there suppress these things. And when I had a discussion with various people about the speculations I have produced to demonstrate that these experiments need to be revisited and the theories and assumptions we thought, the first thing I get says is, "Oh, you've got to publish a paper." But how do I do the experiment to show that the Michelmorlison experiment was wrong when I don't have the few million bucks that's required to move a very precise piece of equipment vertically in the atmosphere? How do I do the Millikan oil drop experiment correctly so that I can detect the proton and follow it? I need to have some very specific equipment to enable me to track what happens as a neutron decays in the appropriate environment that's highly controlled. I need an almost perfect vacuum, and there's all sorts of issues. I don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars it's going to require to do that experiment. And if it is done and they discover something that's important and I publish it, assuming it's not already wrapped up in some sort of technology, the first thing that's going to happen is that the people out there that don't want to believe that the oil drop experiment was a false result are going to come after me personally, saying I'm just a quack out of.
All right. Well, I'm getting bored of naysaying, but here's what I'll say is that when we get the STEM arena and we have a lab, then we will try and set up this experiment. Until then, I mean, I virus totaled it. Your document, I've given you the links. Your documents are, you just do some bit torrenting and get that document out, PDF it so that everybody could have it. We'll put it up on the gateway.
When I try to access the site, the Pirate Bay site, what I get is the Australian government has blocked this site because it's a pirate site.
Okay, fine.
So I physically
have you tried a double VPN?
I'm not.
You know, a double VPN. If you use Nord or something like that, they provide a Proton Mail. If people don't know, when you have a Proton Mail account, you get a free account for Proton VPN. It's free. Proton Mail. So Proton Mail is free. Proton VPN is free. Now you would have to run that VPN, then you'd have to run another VPN on top of that if you don't have Nord. Nord will give you automatic the ability to do double VPN. Listen, I'm not going to get into torrenting just to find the file. However, if somebody who watches the show wants to follow these links and go look this up and try and get us a document, fair enough. I mean, I've never been a torrenter because of the risks, but I've run this through VirusTotal. It says that it says this is safe. I have no idea about the torrent itself. It's obviously not anything too hot for TV. It's just Roberts is making the assertion that this document has been suppressed. There's some evidence for that because when I search the document on DuckDuckGo, really there is no other place to get it but the Pirate Bay, and that's very suspicious because it sounds like legit. It sounds like legit research until I see it. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like legit research. All right, so I like what you brought to the table there. So the question is, bring it back to why you were talking about memory holes, and why were you talking about the memory holes? I mean, how does it relate to the general subject that you've been on?
If you're going to obfuscate and turn the truth into a lie, you have to get rid of the evidence that shows you're lying.
Tell the people, because you were going through my paper, all right, and there's a specific reason why you were on about that subject.
Well, there was in your paper on the photon.
The one that's on the screen.
Yeah, and I haven't really got into it properly, but I had a whole bunch of issues with that paper on the basis of the standard claims that are made about the photon. The paper.
Well, my paper is against the standard claims too, so I'm not really understanding.
Yeah, but if we look at the op-ed stuff of the paper, we look at its title. It's claiming that the particle is not. That the photon is not a particle, which is okay.
Not a particle.
And in the paper, you're saying.
I mean particle in terms of like little balls of matter bouncing around. You automatically are. You're translating the word particle.
No, I'm not doing that at all, right? And in your op-ed, you're saying it can't be a
Yeah,
wave.
you told me the other day that we might have a different definition of particles. Why don't you tell
Right.
people what your
But what I say the photon is, it's a construction. Now, if you want to turn your construction, like the electron is a construction, the proton is a construction, the atom is a construction, the universe is a construction, a galaxy is a construction. The question is, at what point are we going to say that a construction is elemental, that there is no subdivision inside it? And that's our basis model. So the question here is, how does a photon get described in such a manner that the observed behavior of the photon is required in the description of how that thing works? And I'm going to tell the audience out there that if you go out there and look at all the thousands of papers about photons, you will discover that none of them describe any of all the features that have been observed as necessary consequence of their speculation on how that works. And that's the issue. Now I've got a speculation about how I think I
think the audience is aware of that you have a speculation. You've made that abundantly clear.
What I'm saying is that the construction, what the construction is a Merkaba cube tetrahedral structure, a simplex, where one half of the Merkaba cube structure is an inverted structure, and the other half is the positive structure. And what is happening?
We're talking about memory holes, man. Focus. You were talking about memory holes. Okay, so you're talking about a conspiracy to keep ideas like yours from coming to the fore. Put it together for the people. Why would that happen? Why would they need to keep this a secret?
If we understand correctly how photons work and how they travel through the universe, we've got a propulsion system that is self-confined and it works, right? The construct of a photon works, it races through the universe at the speed of light, and the speed of light only applies to the photon and nothing else. You can read Einstein's original papers, they're available on the net. And I'd like anybody out there to prove to me that Einstein, in his papers, stated that the speed of light applied to anything other than a photon.
Well, they didn't, and even in one mainstream paper I was debunking, he correctly went through that and talked about it. Of course, then he went on to speculate about tachyons and nonsense, but he at least admitted that's actually the case.
Right. So what we have is the China's whispers effect of the rest of the community out saying that, Einstein said that. The speed of light was the fastest that anything can go, and he never stated it. They're just straight up lying. They're straight up lying.
That's in my paper. So what's your problem?
So
just kidding. Okay, go ahead.
You wanted an example of memory holes, right? And this is an example of memory holes. If we look at Hubble's spectra analysis of galaxies, he stated that there were one or two conditions. One was that the universe was expanding. And what we're seeing is spectrum drift due to that, or the spectrum drift was intrinsic. In other words, the universe was infinite and static in a weird way, right? And he went to his deathbed, still trying to figure out which of those two conditions occurred. But the mainstreamers cosmology group are saying that Hubble stated that. The reason why there's spectrum drift is because of galaxies, the universe is expanding. But he did not say that. We've got to go back to our original papers and read them and understand what was written down. And I would say that the majority of scientists out there that claim to know things lack the ability to read the original papers and understand what's written in them.
Okay, fair enough. So is this tied to the conspiracy to take over mankind, or what? I mean, what's this to do with 5G in China?
If I discover how a photon travels through space, and I'm able to replicate that in a craft, and I don't need fuel, and the craft can be anywhere pretty much instantaneously, what does that do to military effectiveness?
You go ahead. I'm letting you. I'm only poking them to get you to help the audience.
There's been You don't have to look very hard in the internet to find, there's weird craft that do weird things. Now, if they are built in the earth and they're used for military purposes, there's no way knowing that anybody who might come up with an explanation of how they travel through the environment is ever going to find the light of day, particularly when that technology is critical to the advantage that such a craft would give you. You're not going to, you're going to suppress everything. The levitation effect that's been discovered in universities was shut down the minute they started talking about it amongst the universities, because someone is sitting there watching for these sorts of things, and when they happen, they come along and they say, oh, well, here's some money, we'll take all the equipment away and don't talk about it anymore by signing this agreement that says you won't talk about it. Now, that's actually happened, and it's happened in universities in the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, everywhere, because these technologies give advantage. Victor Schwaberger was brought from Germany to the United States, to Texas, to develop his vortex-based propulsion systems. And the only way he got out of that environment was he had to surrender all his patents and leave and go back to Germany. And within 12 months, he was dead. Now, I've got to ask the question, if he was that good, why'd they bring him to the United States? Why did they force him to surrender all his patents? The reason why is they didn't want that technology out there. We've had people that have developed water-only cars. You fill the fuel tank with water and you just drive it, right? Those vehicles have been destroyed or captured or stolen, and the people who invented it dead. Why? It is not in the interest of the oil industry to allow someone to drive around in a vehicle that all you have to do is turn the tap water on and fill it up.
There you go.
There's been a lot of resistance to electrical engines and in cars, and we've got 100 years of that. One of the earliest motors available for cars in the 1800s was an electrical motor, and it never saw the light of day because, people wanted to sell this waste product out of the oil wells. And the people that had the money and didn't want to lose it made sure that the electrical car never saw the light of day. Tesla built his own electrical car using radiant energy in the environment to drive it. And that car has disappeared, and all this material, the FBI seized the lot, and some of it was returned to his family, but I'd say the good stuff isn't there. It's stuck inside some sort of military lab and been turned into something that they can use and deploy and cause problems for anybody who goes up against them. The advantage of having a vehicle that you never have to fuel up is tremendous. And that's the reason why this technology gets suppressed. Papers that describe it will get suppressed.
Now, are you saying that these people are controlled by our cousins from another body, and that they're planning a takeover of the planet? Or are you saying, hold on, I'm asking, or are you saying that these people who want us to merge with machines are not people at all, and so they're forcing them? Or are you saying it's pure greed and sin? Like, what are you saying? What should the audience take away from your?
What I'm saying is, if we look at the past 100 years of people and what's happened to them, so since Weber forward, when we talk electrodynamics, these criticisms that we have of just in electrodynamics and the gravitational model, every decade or so, there's an effort to redo the theory onto a correct basis, and the other side that's against the truth is out there destroying it. And this has been going on for 150 years. There is a group of organizations, and whether they're fracturing or not doesn't really matter, but their goal is to completely dictate everybody's life on this planet for whatever purpose they desire, and they could not care what the effects are on the people that they control. They believe that the world's population should be reduced to less than 500 million.
Yeah, well, we've already covered that, I suppose. I showed that on the screen.
And we're seeing evidence of that thing occurring. They've been creating wars to stop people from, gaining advantage, changing the system. They put up their little puppet and he goes rogue, and the first thing they have to do is get rid of him. This is the evidence we have for the last 150 years, even before then. You go back to the French Revolution, Napoleon, and all the rest of it. The fiat money system's been around since the 1600s. And what we see is every 30 to 60 years, there's a huge financial depression and everybody gets stuffed over. And
right. That's again the Grunts of Giants. If people haven't read it, read the Grunts of Giants. Buckminster Fuller, well-known genius. There's no speculation. He's no Eric von Däniken or anybody controversial like that. Buckminster Fuller is a well-known genius, and he wrote the Grunts. That was his last book. So go and read it.
If you really want to understand why things are happening the way they are today, and you're in the audience, go and read histories. Read the histories of the Napoleonic Wars. Read the histories of the American Civil War and the Revolution in America that got it out of.
You can read it.
Go and find these sources and actually read them. Put the effort in. Educate yourself. People who think that, you know, when you left high school or university, your education finished. No, it didn't. Your education started from the day you were born and it ends at the day you die, and you have an exam at the end. And if you fail it, you get to go it again. Do you really want to go through all this garbage in your life again until you get the message?
All right. So now you've had a chance to have a go at the system, which I was educated. What is your problem with discussing the items in this op-ed? Like I believe, for example, you had some kind of problem with the thought experiment in 0.6. And frankly, I don't see any reason. I don't see that there's a problem with my approach. So
go to your 10 points. Go
here they
top.
Right
go
here.
back a little bit higher. Next page up.
This is it. This is the one.
So the first one I think is, you know, what is it? Photons are only a model of discrete quantized energy exchange. Well, what photons are is a packet of energy at a given oscillation frequency that goes, you know, and you're talking about Planck length and all the rest of it. That's all fine, but okay. So this is a description of a model, which is fine. Light alters speed instantly on changing mediums, which is correct. Therefore, would violate thermodynamics and restrictions of matter, which is not correct. Ergo,
yes, it is correct. It's 100% correct.
No, it's not.
It is 100% correct.
No, it's not.
It is correct. You cannot, physical matter cannot instantly accelerate. It cannot instantly decelerate or instantly accelerate. It cannot do that. That's not possible.
Where's the proof that that's true?
That violates conservation of energy. If you instantly accelerate, if you first instantly decelerate as you go through plastic, and then you instantly accelerate, that's the whole point of this animated GIF file here. Right. This is the key. This animation is the key.
Yeah, that's all well and good, but my question is, how do you measure the slowdown and the energy dissipation that's occurring? And when it gets to the end, it speeds up, right? If I fire light,
they've done that in lab with, they'll use thicker plastic, thicker glasses. They won't use a thin one. They'll use thicker and thinner, and then they'll measure the red and blue shift, etc.
Okay, however,
right.
Look, the statement, if I get a transparent medium, let's say I get diamond because that's the most transparent for the range of EMR that we're talking about, which is infrared to UV. We stick that the diamond in between, and we fire the light at it. How do we know how much light's hitting the diamond and measure it on the other side and see what the difference is? Because the diamond absorbs, scatters, refracts that light. Right.
Agreed. But how does that undo? Because the purpose of this paper is to let people know that light is a circuit.
So what we're talking about is how do we take a minuscule change in frequency, which is what we've got to do to determine that the energy has been lost from the photon. We don't even know what the energy is of every single frequency of every single piece of light that whacks into this object. And we don't observe what's actually on the other side.
What you're asking for is unreasonable. There's no way to know 100%.
Unreasonable. It's not unreasonable.
It is unreasonable. It's an engineering question. The engineering question is: you build a detector that is good enough to give you an expectation of completion. So you put the so-called the manufactured diamond glass here. You put your source on one side, your detector on the other, and you see how much comes through. As long as you're over 99%, then you're doing pretty good.
The GIF image you're showing is showing light being scattered. right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. But the point isn't that it's being scattered. The point is it's being scattered and is instantly refracting off of the desk as well. It is not. It is not being slowed down by the bottle in the least. Which means it's not about speed.
We know
It's
that
shifting. It's shifting because there's a load. There's a load. That's the point of this paper, is that there's that light is a circuit, and surfaces that it is touching are loads in the circuit. That's the point of the paper.
well,
So I don't see you bolstering the argument that it's a particle. Tell me how it's a particle. I just don't see it.
Right, you've made a claim that light does not express the whatever this phenomenon is, this construction that's traveling through media. You're saying it does not express and absorb energy from the environment. That's what you're saying.
Say that.
It's
no,
what it says.
I haven't said that. No, I haven't said that. I said that
light,
if it's a physical ball.
Read what.
Hey, I am the writer of the paper. I can tell you what it says.
Well, I'm asking the writer.
The paper says.
Word for word, read
point. Be quiet a second and I'll tell you. Okay? The paper says that if it's a physical ball going through a medium and it instantly decelerates and then later on instantly accelerates, that does not conserve energy. That's what I'm saying.
You're not seeing any additional expression of EMR, are you?
What do you mean by that?
Do you see a change in frequency? Do you see a change in the quantity of photons? Do you see a change?
Does a spectroscopy examination using a full spectral analysis see red and blue shifting happening? I'm sure it does. In which case, that only bolsters my argument. It doesn't.
No,
it is not a ball going through. It is not a ball going through glass.
I didn't say. All I said is a construction. I haven't said anything other than what I've already claimed it to be. I'm not saying.
Then what's your issue? I mean, that circuit is a construction.
Well, light to me is a perturbation of the ether.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's in the philosophical discussion later on in the paper.
If it's a perturbation,
that's down here in the so what is. No. That's the so what is light section.
Where's the physical evidence that light is a perturbation in the environment? Where's the proof?
The evidence is in its behavior. Its behavior is not particle and not wave. It's sometimes able to be modeled as a particle or modeled as a wave, but it is clearly neither.
It's a sort of duality.
Yeah, I mean, it's
matter and
it's not really a duality because that would be impossible.
I call it a quasi-particle. I call it like a neutrino is a quasi-particle. All these quasi-particles basically make up the ether.
The list of things don't exist that do not include neutrinos, but virtual particles don't technically exist. Okay, then that's the whole point of them being.
Well, whatever. I'm just saying any subatomic particle that they can think up of, throw it into the ether because that's what it is.
Yes, exactly. And that's the point in the paper. So what I'm not understanding is Robert's exact problem, except
that's my
paper. I don't know if he has a problem with the beauty of this paper. I have no idea. I have no idea what his deal is.
Well, I think your point 2 is false, right? It's a wrong statement.
It's not false. It cannot possibly matter itself cannot instantly accelerate or instantly decelerate. That is a fact of the universe. I'm sorry, it's over. That is done. The question is, if it does, quote, instantly accelerate and instantly, how can it do that? You can explain that with a circuit model, right? Because you can change the load arbitrarily, and the RLC V equals IR relationship will instantly be different. Now, the propagation of that information will still go 1 over C, which has been proved by that experiment that went viral with the it was really Veritasium's video, and then there were people responding to it went viral, and that's going to end up being cited in this paper. But
what
the propagation of the information is that going at 1 over C, but the actual fact of the changes. This is electrical engineering 101. If I change resistance now, I am changing the V equals IR relationship of that circuit. instantly, just like a spreadsheet. It's just instantly changed.
And
that's the only way it's possible. Tennis balls going going through a medium does not. It's not possible.
What the experiment that we're talking about did and showed is that the instant the switch is switched on, there is electrical flow across the entire circuit instantly.
No.
Yes,
it showed that there. No, it showed that the information propagated at one over C.
I'm not going to argue about this anymore. The simple fact
it's in the video. He shows in the oscilloscope that the information propagates at 1 over C. Then the electrical current starts arriving after that, and starts to flow in an upward. What do they call that? A natural logarithmic manner. Okay, and then that's what he showed, is that the information arrived in 1 over C, which was really fast, and then you started to see the actual electrons react and move in that natural logarithmic pattern till it finally reached a voltage which would actually light up a bulb, which means Veritasium was wrong. He was wrong when he made the video. I knew he was wrong when he made the video. I tried to explain it to my kids. And then 2 separate engineers did the experiments to show that he was wrong. And I don't know. Has anybody seen a retraction from him? Did you see any poster retraction? I don't think. Yeah, my kids haven't seen poster retraction. And they follow him pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. There was a whole series of points in that video where the guy went out and bought these 1,000 meters of copper wire and hooked everything up. He showed a whole. Well done him, because he spent money, his own resources, to do this.
But, well, he spent YouTube's money, but yeah.
Well, he spent money anyway. But the issue here was, he did his experiment in the scaled down manner and all the rest of it. But what the experiment shows, and people miss it at the very beginning, is that the circuit establishes itself instantly.
Yes, that's what I said. The nature of the circuit is there.
Yeah.
The information of the closing of the circuit is not instant.
Yeah, but the circuit itself establishes instantly.
Yes, as soon as the isness of it is, yes, I agree.
So what I'm trying to say is that the universe is primed to create the circuit to begin with. It's ready to go. All you have to do is get it to go. And then there's a series of sequences of development that occur following it, that occur at light speed and propagation speeds and all the rest of it. Fine. But the circuit is instantly switched on. It's not just taking a while to switch on.
Okay, well, we should define for the people what that means. The relationship, which is what I said in here, the relationship is instant. The propagation of the information is going to be, depending on the type of information, it's either going to be instant or it's going to follow the rate of induction C. But the actual electron motion is delayed.
Yeah, the flow of information through the circuit is time delayed depending upon the nature of the circuit. Right?
There you go.
If it was a water flow,
so we're agreed.
It would travel at the water flow's requirements and so on. Right? What we're dealing with is, first of all, there's a claim that a light photon has no mass, and there are papers out there that show that it has mass. So they call it a matter. They call it matter. Okay, so it can't be a wave. It's got to be.
It's not matter. It's mass is charge. It's not matter.
Charge occurs.
We don't even know if electrons are matter. We just know that they're charged.
I'm going to start. Is a galaxy a construction?
I mean, it's constructed. I don't know. What do you mean by
a construction?
Sure. Let's go with what your assertion
is. Is a stellar system a construction? Is a planet?
I mean, it is again, yes, constructed by things.
Right. This is an atom a construction?
Matrix stuff. Okay.
Is an atom a construction?
What's your point? What is the point you're trying to make?
What I'm saying is that matter is a construction that expresses a charge consequence, and it expresses an electrical charge consequence and a magnetic charge consequence. That's what matter does. It's a construction that expresses these things. If we're talking about a fractal universe, we need to understand how a fractal construction occurs. What you have is something that is called the seed generator, which has all the characteristics that a fractal will have at any scale. And then you have a set of construction rules that go with it. And when you put these two together and apply them somewhere in the physical universe, I'll forget about the mathematical stuff that gives you Mandelbrot sets and all the rest of it. In the universe, we're making the claim that the universe appears to us a fractal construction. That means that inside the basis seed that from which everything is constructed, there has to exist the rules for electrodynamics and every sort of existence thing we've got. The law of opposites or dipole stuff, or the polarity stuff that you want to promote, Roman, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is the law of opposites. Life has to be expressed.
That's only one part of polarity, but
life, whatever causes life, has to be expressed in that part, the basis construction. Electrical charge has to be expressed. Magnetic charge has to be expressed. Everything that in motion, the thing has got to be in motion, which means motion is expressed in it. And we keep going, good and evil and male and female and all that stuff, right? Has to be there, present in the basis thing that builds everything. And if it's not there, we wouldn't get it in our large scale structure. We wouldn't have life on Earth if it wasn't inside the structure itself. We talk about God. If you go to the religious environment, we say God is part of us. He constructs us. He's part of our structure. We're part of his structure. It's a two-way street, right? We're limited, right? If you want to learn and this comes from Peter Johnson's lectures that he was giving on Genesis, God is unlimited. He can do anything. He's everywhere, can do anything. He's omnipotent, all-knowing, all-powerful, right?
Yep.
How does that environment for him express the capacity to learn something new, right? It's only when we are limited, when we can't do everything, that we've got the capacity to start to understand ourselves. And our contribution to God is the fact that we're limited. We're learning. And the mystery of the structure of the universe is you've got all these individuals that are learning through some sequence of events for a being that is present in all of it at the same time. So he knows everything and is learning at the same time everything. So he's both knowing everything and ignorant of everything, effectively.
Okay. Fair enough.
So
bring it home. Bring it home.
Bring it home is, if we're going to describe how this universe works, and if we're going to describe how phenomena occur, we have to have an explanation of the phenomena in such a way that what we observe must occur. And a lot of our science speculation fails the second step. We have a description of what we see, and because that description is not complete of everything we've observed, we fail the second step of saying why the things that are observed have to happen. All right, okay. So we see all this. We see light doing all sorts of weird stuff. Why does light have to do that? Where's that explanation?
Yeah, I mean, circuit law. I don't know. Like, if that was the final question that you have, it's circuit law.
Yeah, if we're talking about light zipping along and changing and expressing and gaining and losing energy and instantly changing its speed. Is it instantly changing because we don't have a good enough measuring rod to look at it? Our timing systems aren't fast enough.
Speed. I don't know what to say. It's just a model.
Yeah, but you've stated here that light alters its speed instantly upon changing mediums, which I don't have a problem, and therefore would violate thermodynamics. But
how do you not have a problem with that? That's where I'm.
The thing I'm saying. The question is what proof do we have that light instantly changes speed?
You just said you didn't have a problem with that. Now you're saying
it's been measured. Sapphire measured. They slowed light down by what, 5 times or 5,000 times?
There have been experiments done at the Australian National University by a Dutch lady using sodium, who was able to slow down a light photon packet in sodium to walking pace, and that's not a 5 times reduction in speed, right? How did she do it? And she had it slow down, it goes slowly, and then she hits this sodium with a laser, and suddenly it's going at flat out velocity again, right? Why should that behavior occur?
In the interest of saving time, just tell us what your speculation is.
What I'm saying is, for us to be able to determine whether the light speed instantly changes, which I don't think it does, is better detection mechanisms that shows what's occurring. Right? Do we have a clock that's going fast enough to detect a change in, what is it, 200?
Why do you need light to be this matter filled particle for your speculation to work? Because I can show you a universe where you don't need that at all. It's convenient. You can make lasers. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with it if you pretend it's a ball, but you don't need it to be a ball.
I'm not saying it's a ball. Okay, it might look like.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a ball. That's what I'm saying.
What I think light is a structure that travels in the universe like electricity down a wire, except there's no wire.
There you go. You just agreed with
you just said it is a perturbation.
Right? No, I said it's a construction. It's not a wave. You cannot turn a wave.
We didn't say it's a wave. We didn't say it's a wave. I said it's a circuit.
Well, I'm saying it's a construction, which makes it a particle.
Well, you can use whatever words you like.
As a construction, right? You can, if you want to talk about it as a circuit, it is a structure around which charge moves. It's a construction. It's a particle. Okay, it might be a really small circuit, but it's still a particle. It's a construction. What I'm saying about the photon is...
Well, you're using the word particle different than people generally understand the word to mean. I'm just letting you know, like, people have a defined... They see it as a ball. I've asked. People see it as a ball. That's what they meant by particle.
And that's because the mainstream describes it as a ball. The issue you got here is that because we've got water models driving what electrodynamics does, everybody is explaining it in terms of water, and it's not water. Water behaves the way it does because the fundamental building block behaves the way water does. Light behaves like water because the fundamental building block out of which light is constructed behaves that way. Right? We know that in our universe you can have kinetic impact, which is a transfer of energy from kinetics, and there's always a transfer. You'll get heat, sound, and all sorts of stuff from it. That's one way we can transfer energy. The second way we can change energy is we have a structure moving that has a field that is sufficiently large to interact with other particles that will interact with a field. So if I have an electric field that's, say, 1 meter wide and strong enough to affect matter that passes by, all the electric structure inside the matter that passes by will interact with that field, and energy will be transferred from the thing that's moving and the matter it passes. There'll be an exchange, and it'll be dual direction. And that gives you two things. It gives you action at a distance, and it gives you kinetic behavior. You get wave and particle behavior instantly. You don't need to go out there and invent other models. That's what I'm saying.
It's not an invention of another model. This is a model that already existed, which is...
What we've had for the last 250 years is an argument about whether things are a wave or whether things are a particle.
And I'm saying in this paper it's neither. It's very boom.
So the issue I have with point 2 is the word instantly, because I don't think it's instantly.
Well, that's their conjecture, and that's what I'm saying.
That's fine. So, reasons why they're not real particles, and therefore light has no mass. Well, that's been already proven by these experiments that that's not true. And even the neutrinos has papers written on it.
But I'm suspicious of those experiments because they decided that there was momentum before they discovered that there was mass.
Well, the question is how do we measure momentum?
Isn't that convenient?
How do we measure momentum?
They came up with this idea because of the movement of the Voyager. And the fact is that the Bifold-Brown effect had already been discovered.
Yeah. How do you measure momentum?
You don't need momentum to describe what's happened to the Voyager drift.
What's momentum? How do I come up with a quantity for
momentum equals mass? For people to know, momentum equals mass times velocity times angular change.
Okay. And point 3 says what?
Well, hold on, I'm doing something.
It says, therefore, light has no mass and cannot impart momentum. If that's the case, there's a little tool that you can take out into the environment. You have a glass ball. Inside the glass ball is a spindle. One side of the plates is white, and the other side of the plates is black. And you just stick it in the sunlight, and this thing starts spinning. Why does it do that if there's no momentum?
Because it's charged.
What I've got is
it's charged, and it's in a charged environment.
What I've got is a surface that reflects light really well because it's white, and a surface that absorbs light because it's really dark. That's what's happening in that environment. And the fact that
it's charged.
Well, you can call it whatever you like, but the simple fact, if there was no momentum, that thing would never spin. Right? There is a structure that is impacting it, and it is imparting momentum, and the impart of momentum causes it to spin.
Again, if it's charged and it's now in an electromagnetic environment, then energy is being applied to it from the Earth. So we don't have the sophistication to see the drain on the angular momentum of the Earth. We just don't have that.
I can take this up into space. I'm going to stick it in a low gravity environment.
You do that. You let me know. I didn't say anything about gravity. I said the Earth's electromagnetic environment. That's what I said.
Yeah, well, let's move it away from the Earth. Let's stick it on the edge of
and then get back to me.
Well, I don't have the billions of dollars it's going to take to move this thing out.
Well, then demand that they put it on a satellite and prove your point. Because if they can prove that, then I will retract this and say that the Earth is not a ball. By the way, thank you for the. I went and did a spot check on the copper thing. You were 100% right. That velocity was not correct. I don't know where I got that information from, but that was incorrect. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I just found it.
It didn't matter for the paper, but
no, that's okay.
It matters.
So issues to do with momentum and all these sorts of claims. If the thing is having an impact, right? If I stick it in front of light, and you can say it's electromagnetic interaction, which is fine. The thing has got to have something that allows it to carry charge, and in other words, it's got to be a construction that carries charge. So the claims.
That's what a circuit is. You just said the word circuit without saying it. I mean, I've been called taciturn. I've been called stubborn and difficult. All definitely true about me. Why is it that you don't want to call it a circuit? That's what I'm not understanding. Am I crazy here? Oh, hold on, Rick, Nick. Am I being crazy here? Like, I feel like I'm going in circles.
What I'm trying to say is, if I look at
hold on, let them interject here. Am I crazy for wondering why you won't call it circuit?
Well, I don't know. It seems like it might be a circuit. I mean, like everything else is circuitry. The sun and its Birkeland currents reaching out to the planets, both poles. That's a circuit.
Well,
right.
Yeah. Okay. What we know about a circuit is it contains components, right? Yeah. That'd be a fair statement.
Go ahead.
Right. I'm saying that a photon is a construction, therefore it contains components. So
an emitter, a
receiver. All we're talking about. When I describe a photon, I claim that it's.
You've been talking for a minute. I think Nick has something to say.
Well, I'm just saying, if it is a circuit, then I mean, I suppose the components are the emitter, the thing that emits the light, the thing that receives it, so you know that the light's actually happened, and the beam of light is forms the connection somehow. I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Well, we won't know if people won't do the experiments, right? I mean, if they won't look at it this way and then actually step through and do the experimentation, then we may just not be having. And by the way, this isn't my theory alone, right? This is the conjecture of many people that have come forward.
Well, it seems like Newton sort of he was a fan of what Ted described as the as kind of a shock wave effect, the bow shock effect, that the light, the actual connection made by the light travels at a much faster speed than the actual wave that emanates off what it causes a disturbance in, I suppose. I think Newton followed that kind of way of looking at light.
Right, which is what a circuit can do, which a ball cannot do. Would you say that that's fair to a fair statement?
Well, I have a problem with the fact that a photon doesn't emit EMR. It's a self-contained structure. It doesn't. It oscillates within itself. You see
fair enough.
The field structure of a photon, if we're talking electrics and magnetics, is multipolar and it's binary. In other words, we see two major fields, an electric field and a magnetic field that's oscillating between a maximum and a minimum, a maximum negative and a maximum positive, and a magnetic field that's doing the same thing. That's one of the sets of fields that are present. Then there is a 4-pole structure, and then there's an 16-pole structure, then a 64-pole structure. And as you go up in this binary progression, the strength of those fields becomes very weak very quickly. And what we're seeing is the dominant field oscillation, or the gross effect of all these things added together. It takes very specialized and expensive equipment to detect all the different oscillation mechanisms that are present. Right? The thing does, photons, can a photon be collided with another photon? Can it be sped up or slowed down? Well, clearly the environment proves that the photon can be sped up and slowed down.
Well, the first can be done too, because it's been done. They've created matter from electrons.
No. What they've actually done is
they've created an electron from photons by slamming them together.
Collision. So the question is, if it's not a matter structure, how the hell do we get an electron out of it or other matter structure out of it when we collide these things? How does that work?
The energy package. We've already talked. That's in this paper. I talk about that the Feynman diagrams are circuit diagrams. They're just a different form of circuit diagram. It's not like that Kirchhoff has the final say on all circuit diagrams. There's lots of kinds of circuit diagrams. Buddy works on. Is he still around? I don't know if he's there still, but Buddy works on circuit diagrams. There's the guy doing the planetary the Earth ley lines and putting it to music. Those are circuit diagrams. There's lots of kinds of circuit diagrams. But the key to them is that there's going to be a source, a load. There's going to be capacitance, inductance, and implied in that circuit is going to be some hysteresis. And there's going to be, various forms of conductance, etc. Right.
The entire universe is a complex structure of LRC. You've got an inductor.
Yes, it's electrical. I'm glad we agree.
A capacitor and a resistance, right? And it's an oscillation mechanism in that environment. Right? It can be set off to oscillate, and it will decay very slowly, right? But it will decay because energy in that circuit heats the circuit, and you lose energy in the process. So the thing slows down. You can't, and that's what entropy is all about. You're going from a high energy state to a low energy state, and I call it constructional stability. The universe is desiring to reach the state where everything is the same constructional stability. And that's not possible when you've got an oscillating circuit structure. Okay, so the issue here is maybe it's just...
Hold on. You just made a huge leap there. Say that again and then explain how you can make that statement.
You have an oscillating structure.
Fair enough. Right?
An oscillating structure will impart and gain energy from its environment. So you can't get a fully balanced charge structure and potential difference. You can't wipe it out. If we have two electrons that are spinning in opposite directions to each other, so I get two electrons and I spin them opposite, and when I put them close together, they stick, right? Because their fields are operating in opposite directions. So that if I'm looking from one electron to the other electron looks positive, even though it's negative. And these things will attract under those circumstances. But because there is a physical displacement between these two particles, you cannot completely and totally eliminate the fields. They don't go to zero, and they'll oscillate between a 60 degree, right? If we say there's 3 points on it and they rotate, it'll rotate and it'll go to a maximum of 1/3 and a minimum of 1/3 in the opposite direction as these charge points that, the electron's supposed to have 3 of them. As it's rotating in opposite directions, just get your fingers and rotate them. There's a point where the charge points line up, and then there's the maximum displacement, which is halfway between the charge points, and then you come back. So you're talking about an oscillation mechanism just in that field structure. And the amount of energy that's being transformed between these things in they oscillate is almost, I would claim, to be impossible to measure because we don't have the tools to do it. And if we tried to measure it, we'd impart energy into that system and kick it on. So because there is physical distance between constructions, you cannot exactly balance out all the charge, which is why we get atomic structure that is stable and not stable. The neutron is claimed to be a particle because when it's out there in free space, it'll travel as a confined structure, and then suddenly it'll just fall apart, turn into an electron and proton, a hydrogen atom, and there'll be a photon flash.
Okay, but you haven't yet shown me why that means it can't be a circuit. That you haven't made any connection. A lot of the things you've just said,
the construction,
I can agree with.
The construction itself is a structure that is in motion, right? And it's made up of the seed structure, right? So there's always, you can talk about it as a circuit as you like. The photon is a construction, therefore it is a circuit. Fine, whatever. But whatever's making up that construction at its base level is indivisible. There is no substructure to it, yet it expresses in an oscillating fashion charge variance of electric charge, magnetics, motion, time effects of past and future, and all these other things, right? It's expressed in the structure, and it looks like it's a flow, but it's not a circuit. It's a complete indivisible structure. I can't describe it better than that, but this thing, when it combines with other things, gives us a circuit structure that we can call a photon, an electron, a planet, or whatever else you want to build with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's what the aether does. The reason why we can't detect the aether level down here on the planet, we find it very hard at the surface of the planet, is there's so much matter around absorbing the aether to produce stability. The higher up in the atmosphere I go, the less matter I have to make stable, therefore the more ether I have. So as atmospheric pressure decreases as you go towards space, etheric pressure increases because matter's there to absorb it. Right? If I want to accelerate an electron, it's absorbing the aether to create the bubble that I can accelerate because the electron doesn't want to move. And eventually I can accelerate this structure to the point where it just simply gives up. It says, no, I'm not going to do this anymore, and explodes. Does it actually, what proof do we have that an electron's hit an electron and produce the result?
All right, I've been very patient. I'd like other people to be able to chime in. I'd like to hear their replies. You've made your positions known. I haven't heard anything that said that that a circuit can't do any of that. So I'd just like to get other people's perspective. So anybody feel free to chime in. I thought Andy dropped by. Is Andy still here? I'd love to hear from Andy. We haven't heard from Andy on the show in quite a long time. If he's still listening. Either way, I would certainly love to hear from Nick or Rick, their reply, rebuttals, or thoughts, etc.
I don't have too much to say on the matter, really. I'll just let you guys carry on with that. Yeah, I'll leave it open until we get some more information or some. It's one that I'll let you guys work that out, I think.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for him to write a dissenting opinion and help me promote my paper by publishing his dissenting opinion on academia, and then we could create our own little back and forth. But I mean, I would love to hear. I think the audience would like to hear. I mean, do you have a problem with this, with the circuit, or Rick's idea of the I mean, I don't know if it's Rick's only idea, but perturbation in the ether field. So, you know, where do you come down on the nature of light?
I think in the past, I think it's been more perturbation of the ether. However, I like the idea of a circuit as well, because somehow there's information transferred as well as it's just not a clear, straightforward. There's a relationship set up when light moves from one thing to another somehow. So maybe maybe there is some kind of circuit set up through the ether. Yeah, it's
And
a
well,
possibility.
who knows the true nature of the ether? It may, I mean, people are like I'm referring to it as quasi particles. It may even go deeper than that. It may even go to the point where these quasi particles are being created so that matter can be created from the ether itself, which is unknown exactly what it is, and probably will be unknown for a good long while to come.
Yeah,
but
I've
all
started looking at the
speculation.
ether as this space between the atoms where it's the vacuum, the exotic vacuum, the evos.
Well, no, it can't be something that's known. It's got to be something that's unknown at this point.
Well,
You know what I mean?
these only seem to occur in sort of silicon transistors or lattices. Now they would actually happen in a hydrogen metallic lattice, as you know, liquid lattice as well.
Right. Well, I mean, the descriptions of an atom. Take
These
the descriptions of an atom. We get a description of a nucleus with an electron orbiting it.
yeah.
And now we've observed gold atoms breaking on a bridge. That's out there. That's on YouTube. Anybody can see that. That these atoms, they look like spheres. So if that sphere is the area of influence of an electron zipping around at speeds that are unconscionable, faster than the speed of light, they would have to be perceived as a solid object, right? So we just don't even know what atoms are even at this moment.
Yeah.
We know them. We know for a fact that they are spheres. What makes those spheres up? Conjecture. It's all speculation.
Correct.
There you go.
Until we
Concerning
see
energy, somehow expressions of energy, aren't they?
until we actually see an atom, or sorry, an electron or a nucleus, we won't know for sure. So we just go with that. Speculate. Keep speculating, boys.
One of the things I wonder is the photon, what we're calling the photon, the physical effect of an electromagnetic discharge between two common between a capacitance potential? Is it in fact an electrical circuit in the way it expresses? Because one of the things that I consider to be true is that a photon travels on a helical construction, a helical conduit, and that conduit is between two polarities of a charge. I don't know what the charge is, but the photon is able to, it's either being self-propelled or it's being propelled because of this capacitance. So imagine the photon is effectively a lightning bolt where electrons move. It's just
well, then you have to throw polarization into the mixture too, because that's part of it as well. And
but if it's moving,
how do you explain polarization?
If the photon is moving
if it's a packet,
if it's moving in a helical conduit, it will produce polarization effects. If I get something moving in a helical screw, I can that process will produce a polarization. There'll be a rotation, and if what your filter is rotated in the correct direction, it'll go through. If it's not in alignment with your rotation of the travel, then it'll get blocked.
Hey, look at this.
Oh, you found it come back, did it?
No, look
yes.
at No, it's not. Okay, so this is what the village looks like. Maybe this was like prior to the construction, but it's looking like maybe there was another.
Well, that was the one they built. Maybe
that was the one that Robitaille used, isn't it?
I think that's the one.
This is for sure. But what is this? I mean, is it just
that's the one
that's the one that Robitaille used because it's built into the side of a mountain.
That one is the one in
isolated
Armenia
from the ocean sounds.
No, this is the one in Armenia. Okay.
That one.
This doesn't look like the same site.
It's not.
Yeah, it's a different structure.
Yeah. Well, then there's two of these scopes.
Or that one is the same scope.
Well, unless that's the scaffolding unless that was the scaffolding built up to build that dish, and then it was all.
But I mean, look at the ground. Look at the grounds. Look at the grounds around. They don't look the same. And the angle doesn't even look the same.
Well, it's probably taken from the opposite side. Maybe it's taken from the building that's in behind.
No, we're looking into the bowl. Look at the steepness. Where we're seeing they are different. These are different scopes. This article has conflated. There's another one.
Yes.
The first
one is a test structure. In other words, the first one is the Go A.
Mm-hmm.
And you get Go B, which is the one they really built, because
this article has conflated too, because these are clearly different grounds. These are not the same place.
But the paper, the story there showed that there were two. They did an experiment and then went to the powers that be were in the Soviet Union to get the proper thing built, and it was built just before it all broke up. So maybe it's two different times.
I don't know, but that's exciting news. If there's another one out there that's laying in disrepair that could just be built up, of course they could just do the experiment themselves and stop being wankers about it. But anyways,
Well, I'd reckon that the Chinese will be paying attention to these sorts of things, and the question is if they build.
Probably they will. Yeah, you're probably right about that. They'll probably
they built the Arecibo thing in where it was in China. They duplicated that. They're duplicating CERN. So they'll build their own. If they think
that's a good point. They probably will beat us to it by building the scope. What a shame for us, but I guess it needs to be done by somebody.
Yeah. But anyway, so the question I have in my mind is this the fact that light travels the way it does? Is that the same thing as an electrical discharge or an electromagnetic discharge? Is that what it really is? And we just happen to be in the path that thing goes through. And if that's the case, then there's got to be a structure that it's discharging from towards. There's a transfer of mass structure or energy or whatever you want to call it. There's a transfer. And the question is it's transferring from somewhere to where? So there's a great deal that we don't understand. We don't know what energy is. We don't know what an electric charge, why there is an electric charge. We don't really know why there's a magnetic charge. There's claims out there, but how do we prove them? How do we prove the claim that Ampere made? And I don't think the claim has been proven. So the assumption, I question. We know the mathematics we've got is incomplete because it doesn't describe all circumstances that occur. So there's all sorts of issues that we've got to get right in a fundamental level. And this is important because if we're going to go to space and go out there, we can't afford to be on our way to some star and have a surprise that, obliterates our spaceship. That is something we do not need to have happen to us. There's got to be a real think it through process. And we can't afford, if we're going to try to go to space, we can't afford the stuff that's occurring right now. We can't have these power groups corrupting our processes or corrupting our understanding or corrupting our efforts.
Okay.
So our history has got to lose this, Look at what a bunch of miracle makers we are. We're so good that we fix the problem type stuff that's been going on ever since the Roman Empire and probably before. You know, the Romans wrote their history to say, you know, what a great bunch of guys we were. We went out there and civilized the world. And every culture that's built an empire has had the same process. The Chinese empires, every one of them. They've overstated their contribution and they've hid their sins, and they say that the other guys didn't know anything. Well, if that was the case, why have we got the Eastern religion traditions in Buddhism and others that say, you know, there have been 4 worlds before this one? We don't know much about them because they were, you know, destroyed or transformed in some way, that we lost all that information. And I don't think it's been lost, personally.
Hey, before I go,
when people say 4 worlds or 4 suns or before this one, it's not that the Earth was destroyed. Was the surface. The surface was destroyed.
Well,
and
the culture.
The life that was on the surface.
I just need to pause it real quick and ask. You said, Robert, you said you had a citation that I needed.
Which was
41. Where's 41 at? The extra vertical interferometer experiment. I have I can get the Russian video, the documentary, but I need the paper that you were talking about.
What I said was that there was 2 experiments that have been done.
Yeah. But I
don't know what the papers are. Sorry. We're going to have to hunt around. But there are, you know, maybe we can cite the videos for the Russian one.
Well, I'm going to cite the Russian documentary. Don't you worry about that. But you know, it would be nice to have, because you had said that you had a paper for the second.
What I'd said is that I've been told that these 2 experiments had occurred.
You've been told. Listen, I don't mind you leaning on your colleague, my friend, even though you won't give his name or any of his work and everything's classified. But you know, for a guy, you're always talking about all the stuff that they're hiding from us. You're gonna have to do better than that. Speaking of which, I got to ask, what's the status on the experiment?
I'm trying to get the iron bolts I need to create the coil structure.
You said that last time. What's
that?
Yeah,
well,
hold up.
Well, because of all the global events that are going on, shipping's disappeared and I can't get the bolts.
Okay, well, you know, I don't know how things are in Australia.
You go up to the hardware store and you're trying to get zinc hot dipped bolts that have the thread going all the way from one end to the nut at the other end.
I really don't think that steel is going to make a big difference. You can get rid of the zinc part and then just have a steel bolt. I mean, I don't think it make a difference.
I just need an iron rod, basically.
Well, yeah, all you have to do is go to the hardware store and they'll sell you an 8-inch or 10-inch or 12-inch spikes for building decks and fences. And
yeah, but it's the stuff that's in the building industry is treated to stop it from rusting, which means it's steel, and steel doesn't have the magnetic induction mechanisms that iron on its own has. So I've got to go. You know, trying to get the right material to build this thing is my problem at the moment.
A nail is made out of iron. It's not steel. A spike for joining 2 6x6s together is not. I mean, it's not steel. It's iron, my friend.
Yeah, but the thing he was using was fairly thick. You know,
yeah, well, you're looking if you're looking at an 8-inch spike, you're looking at 3/8 of an inch thickness.
Well, I've got in my hot little hands some Tex screws, and I don't know whether they're actually iron. I'll check them out. I can do them with that. But the second thing I need to collect, and I didn't order these damn things in the first place, is the analog amp and DC things that are center aligned, so that if this experiment, if the video is claiming what it's claiming, then the electrical power being produced should be alternating current. if that's the case, because there's an oscillation mechanism going. So what I need to get is those analog meters that have center aligned and they can flip positive and negative. And I didn't order them, so because I'm not interested in the light globe. What I'm interested in is, in this circuit, do we produce an oscillating electric effect? And those analog meters would be the ideal solution. And you can, film them. You just put the whole thing, you coil your wire around your core and connect it up, and put your amp meter across the between the two coils.
How big do these spikes have to be, size-wise?
Well, I think they were sort of like a finger thickness and about a middle finger's length.
Well,
Hey, Rob.
how a finger's length? So you're looking at a railway iron spike.
No.
Thank you.
No, not that big. I mean, that might be. What was in the video was a bolt, which was probably what? Well, he had it in his hand, so let's say it's about maybe 2.5 mils in diameter.
Well, you can grind it down.
I don't have a grinder.
You don't have a grinder? Oh, wow.
Well, mate.
You got a belt sander?
Even I got an angle grinder.
No, I don't have this equipment. Right.
I don't know. I gotta push you. On this.
Damn.
You've promised the group.
Well, I'm sorry, but you've got to be able to get the bits, and I haven't been able to get the bits. When I did the order,
it's my job to bust your chops.
Yeah, when I did the order, it took 4 weeks for the order to arrive.
Okay, yeah, I don't know how things are in Australia. I have Amazon in my freaking city. Like, we have a distribution center. Hey, kids, still on the call.
If a letter comes from the Australian Parliament to my address, it takes 2 days. But if it's any other sort of letter, it takes 2 weeks.
All right.
Right, and if the thing isn't in the shelf, like I've tried to order some certain, and they say, "Oh, well, you can't put that order in because we don't have it." I can't even put it as a, send me it when you've got it order. They just refuse to take it. So that's the sort of problem I've got at the moment. And because of all the transport and issues that have been occurring for the last 2 years, getting the bits once they've run out is the problem. 2 years ago, I could have gone to the hardware store and got what I wanted, but the building industry keeps going, and the stocks don't get redone because there's no production, no transport, all sorts of issues going on. So it's suddenly become very, very difficult to get bits. And the way it's expressed itself in Australia, and particularly in the building industry, is the price of construction's gone through the roof because you can't get the bits. And the construction speed has been slowed down because you can't get the material to construct things. So, yeah, it's causing some real difficulties. But anyway, I'm not saying I'm not going to do the experiment. I just got to get the bits.
All right, fair enough.
And for another, I am going to do it, but I'm on a limited budget. So I was constructing another purchase order, and for me it's expensive. $1,000 might not seem like a lot of money to people who got a job, but for someone who is relying on the income sources I don't have $1,000 to go waste.
You guys got a Kijiji thing in Australia?
A what?
Kijiji.
What's that?
Where it's a network of people going to a website with used goods.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have that. Yeah, we have that.
Well, go
and things like that.
Go there, type in the word iron, and see what pops up. I'm sure you'll be able to find something there.
Yeah, we have something called maker spaces, and they have scrap metal laying around in abundance because people's abandoned projects and stuff. I mean, it's just like iron everywhere, among other things.
I mean, you can probably, this is crazy, but like an old iron gate that they want $5 for, or $20 for.
Yeah.
And then cut a couple of pieces out of it that you need. I'm sure you got a hacksaw, don't you?
Nope.
What?
That's amazing. Amazing.
Right. The issue I have here is I don't have the resources to just go out and buy what I need instantly.
You don't have any tools that you've accumulated over your lifetime.
Not of that sort, because I wasn't doing that sort of stuff. You know, I'm a keyboard jockey, you know, business analysis and specification stuff.
You don't have a Dremel or anything like that?
I don't know what a Dremel is.
Well, it's like a little
cutoff.
handheld-
It's a cut.
sort
It's
of
a
like
little
a
cutoff
drill.
wheel.
Yeah, it's like it's a tiny wheel that cuts things or grinds things.
No.
Well,
I don't have those tools.
I don't know what to say, man.
How about it borrowing a hacksaw off a neighbor?
All I know is you promised the audience you'd do this experiment, so you got to make it. You got to burst through. You got to make it happen.
Well, I
It'd be great
need.
if it works anyway. I'd be
Rob, what you
astounded
looking
if it
for?
does, but it'd be great.
Rob, what you're looking for is iron out of like an old bed head. Would that be a fair comment?
Well, I don't. Maybe, but the thing is, you know, I'm 1,000 kilometres.
Yeah, I
from the
understand where you are. I know where you are.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a long
metal.
way from nowhere.
Long
But
way.
there's got to
way.
be a scrap. There's got to be a scrap yard in your area that you take the junkyard that you could probably rummage through a bunch of steel that's been chucked out.
Well, they've changed those rules as well. It's called the tip, and they
That's
don't let
right.
they don't let people in our area go to the tip to Fossick.
Imagine that Mad Max, and you can't get any of them old bike parts or anything, and cobble a few old cars together and motorbikes. Poor old Mad Max.
I've had to wait until my bank balance allows me to go and do the purchase I'm going to do, and it's sitting there ready to go. And when I can do it, I'll do it. But then I've got to wait, you know, the next 3 or 4 weeks for the stuff to turn up.
Well, that's
There you
it. Well, I hope you do it before the end of the world, anyway. You know, which is.
Yeah, well, I've got another power amp circuit thing that I've got to get other components for anyway to prove what was being claimed as well. So, you know, it's going to be at 1200 mils by 1200 mils, which is what 1200 mils is about 2400 mils is 4 feet or thereabouts, so it's about 2 feet square. And I've got to create a circular structure, which means copper wires and diodes and resistors and all sorts of weird stuff, which is going to be fun to try and build that. And that will prove to me whether what I've been told in terms of experiments past work or not. But that's, again, it's componentry. I've got to get specific types of transistors, and I don't know where to get them. You know, I keep getting told what the components are, but you know, the transistor is supposed to be the best in the world, which means it's going to be the most expensive, and I need quite a number of them, and it's not a, you know,
eBay.
You know, eBay isn't where you're going to get these things. Right, those neodymium magnets, right, the cylinder ones and all the rest of it, and the circular ones, you're talking $9 Australian per magnet or more. You know, the price of these things in Australia are just exorbitant. You know, we've got petrol prices which is now approaching $2 a litre. So, you know, it's $8 a gallon basically.
I suppose it's not really easy to start posting these molybdenum magnets in the post. Stick in the post box, you never get it out.
Well, they've got to
Stick
be shipped through transportation.
Well, that's it.
Like the cylinder ones, if I had a group of them, but you know, you've got to buy them in quantity, and for me, we're talking hundreds of dollars, and I can't. You know, the choice for me is buy food or buy magnets, which is it going to be?
Yeah, well, there is that.
I've got to watch the pennies. Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
There's an insurance policy that I have that I'm going to cancel because the premiums doubled this month.
All right. Well, I'm not going to presume to have any control over your budget, but you can't make excuses forever. You've got to. You've promised the instant you would do it.
Said I would do the experiment.
Ramon, you don't understand. It's
No,
like
I don't.
air.
I don't.
You don't understand. His living arrangement is like trying to live on air. The money that by the time you pay your rent, your power bill.
You're right. As a capitalist, you're right. As a capitalist, I don't understand because anybody can business anywhere, even in fascist Australia.
Rare basics of living. It is the rare basics of living. Yes.
Okay, well, anyways,
and like I think Rob,
you give me a list of parts.
Give
me a list of parts and an address, and I will send you those parts. All right.
If you can find them, I'll list them.
Believe me, between my father and I, we can find them. That man, he can find anything.
Rob, he lives in the good old US.
Yeah, and I'll get them shipped.
I still have everything.
I think everybody here knows, and everybody watching knows I'm a man of action. I'll get it shipped. You give me a list, and then in the meantime, try and find that that paper or at least demonstration. Not the Russian documentary. I've already got that one.
Well, there was. If you found the paper that went with that cosmic background radiation, has that reappeared on the internet?
No. In fact, I don't know if you saw. I was looking for it, and it's still dead. All I have is the links that
it used to be there. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, I've got to the point where I can do that purchase anyway, so I'll be doing that shortly. It's the iron that I need to put in the wrap. But the thing is, in that video that he actually had the wire ends stripped and then connected to the bolt, so that the copper wire wound around the bolt, and the ends of the copper wire actually electrically connected to the bolt, which I thought was a bit strange.
Sorry about that. So I had a phone call coming in. So
Rob,
essentially the journal, and the journal has the information, but stepping through it is not the same as the original paper. So we still have an APB out for Haruni's original paper. If anybody downloaded it when Robitaille first put that video, I'm kicking myself. I swear to God, I downloaded it. I just don't know what computer I was on and what the name of the file was, because I know it's got to be on one of my computers. I just have too many computers. I don't know where I stored that, but I remember thinking this is exactly the kind of thing that disappears because of the very subject that you brought up. Which, by the way, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was wanting you to prove the hypothesis that this memory hole is a purposeful hiding of the truth and information, and I completely agree.
Well, the missing paper is classic. It was there 3 months ago and it's disappeared.
No, it wasn't. It was more than 3 months ago, but it was definitely there before, or he wouldn't have cited it in his video. And I've asked him where it is, and I've not gotten a reply for like an alternate. You would think that he would host it on his own Vixra, and I don't know what the holdup is, except for if he just isn't aware that the paper's missing. So if anybody's in contact with Robitaille, let him know the freaking paper's still missing, and we need it posted because I want to be able to cite that paper. I'm not going to cite a dead link, When
I read it, it was there. So, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely this situation that you were talking about. In a perfect example. Of this memory hole that they create, and then they go, well, there's no proof, and you go on, what are you talking about? And then when you go to find the information, it's conveniently missing. Isn't that weird? It's so unique how that he keeps happening. But of course, to me, it's not unique. To me, it's conspiracy. But means, motive, opportunity. They have the means, they have the motive. What is their opportunity? I don't know. I mean, maybe they're DDoSing. Maybe they're just saying, hey, this is a problem. We keep getting emails from people who sound crazy and, blah, blah, blah. So we just need to nuke this link. I don't know how it's happening, but it conveniently happens over and over again. And that's why sites like archive.org and Wayback Machine are so freaking important, because if you don't have those resources, you lose the information forever.
Which is
And
one
then
of the reasons. One
then
of the
they
reasons
throw
why
them in there.
we were copying these for our research purposes. You know, there's the book that I want to find again. I know I had it, which it started with matter. It's and you know, mass and that the gravity side of things. So it started in that field of mass, and at the end of the book, or through the book, it showed how mass or matter could be turned into electrodynamics, right? And do you think I can find that book?
No, I have no idea. Can you?
I read it. I've lost it. And do you think I can find it? No way. It's suddenly vanished.
I mean, the library somewhere. If you give me the exact titles, I can go down to the UK library and try and find this stuff too. But,
Yeah.
you know, before I go, I'd want a long list of things that we need.
I have to dig around. Well, I got to go through my papers and all the rest of it because I was in the process of building it, and then got lost in the weeds and hadn't fully documented my sources. So if I've got it, it's been buried so well because I created a structure that was fairly stable, had all this stuff organized, and gave my copy of it to my colleague, and he does it a completely different way and was sticking stuff everywhere and deleting everything and redoing. And between his redoing of stuff and my reorganizing of stuff and hard disk data loss and things along those lines, I think it's just been wiped out in the process. So unfortunately, I'm fairly good at keeping stuff, but because of the way my colleagues working, everything's been duplicated. It gets a second copy and then a third copy and then a fourth copy, and that just confuses the crap out of me. So I've got copies of all the documents. There's 11,000 or 14,000, sorry, 14,000 files and videos of the stuff that I've collected, but I'm sure about half of it is duplicated. But I don't want to just go through the process of getting rid of the duplication because if you make a mistake, it's gone for good because it's no longer available to me. You go search. Well, I don't know where some of the documentation came from because he grabbed some and I've grabbed some. So it's not simple. And then when we have papers that we used to have access to disappear, and we haven't unfortunately captured the particular paper and took a copy of it, we lose it. And then you got the problem because it's copyrighted, you can't just simply put it back on the net.
Well, you can, but then they come after you, but I'm ready to fight the power personally. That's just me.
Yeah,
I understand people aren't necessarily.
I think the problem we had with that's the experiment that was done in Azerbaijan or wherever, Armenia, sorry, is that nobody would publish his paper.
Yeah, because it threatened the power.
Yeah. So
can't have truth to threaten power. And it's such a like, I don't understand why people are so freaking weak personally, but I don't know. I mean, it's an absolute fact that people have done research that doesn't see the light of day. And then the people in Rational Wiki or Phys.org or wherever, Physics Stack Exchange, they claim that it's never been done. You can't, for example, they'll say you can't conduct electricity in space. Bull crap. Now Wiley's printed their text. Have they gone back to Physics Stack Exchange and remove that? Let's find out. Let's do a little test here. So Physics Stack Exchange, electricity in space. I remember I saw this like back in 2018 when I was first getting in the electric universe, and here we go. Top answer.
Well, it's still there. Well, look at it.
Well, the article's still here, but there may be better answers now. So let's see. Looks like somebody's done the work. Oh, look here. No, is not a good conductor. Now look at this. 7 up votes for that one. Okay, good. So anybody who says no because it's not a material object. Okay, that's a pointless answer.
There was one time, and this is within the space of, you know, I found an article in Phys.org, I think it was, I'm pretty sure, that described some element that I was interested in, and I got out of. I'd gone on to click a link inside that article, and when I tried to come back to it, it had been deleted.
Yeah, it happens a lot more than people think. For example, there was a Quora article where the person said, did this head of the CIA really say that if the Americans believe anything that's true, then we haven't done our job? So she was in the room. She was in the meeting. She answers the question. I come back later to cite that because I was writing my New World Order paper, and suddenly that answer is missing. So I go into the archives and find the evidence. And also someone wrote in Quora, did she write this question on Quora? Right, so I find it and I answer, and I put the answer there, okay? All right, they banned me later from Quora. I wonder why, okay? So I put the answer on, and I say, here's the link to what she had said, and here's what she said. Here are screenshots of what she said. I come back later. The question that was asking if she said that, answered that about whether George said that, that whole question was gone.
They
Okay?
deleted everything.
Yeah, well, Quora is probably controlled by the CIA. I mean, it's almost certain.
And this is occurring everywhere. You know, I tried to find, there's an article I'm trying to find. In 2013, found it very easy, and then 2 years later, I get everything except what I'd found. There was a paper that I'm looking for, and that was in 1910 or somewhere, you know, early 1900s. It used to be there in the internet in 2014, and by 2016, that paper, the link to it and everything, had disappeared. And this happens so many times, and it's just annoying. So yeah, that there are stuff out there that they don't want. It's either the science, mainstream science, and groupie religion, the religion science doesn't want to have, so they just get rid of it because they don't want anybody to be able to find it in the first place and ask them difficult questions. Or it's wrapped up with technology that is working, and they don't want people to come down the path and, you know, duplicate the technology that they're gaining advantage from. So they're the two reasons. And the education system, I mean, I heard this in the last 2 days. The local school here, we've got people in year 10, I think it is, which is, you know, 2 years from the end of high school, effectively. You know, it's the year where you either choose to go further education or go into trades training. And people in that year at our local school cannot do the mathematics, cannot read. They can't do those things. They're not equipped to deal with the economy into which they're going.
Well, and that's not by accident. Let's bear,
it's deliberate.
Yeah, let's bear that in mind.
And it's,
but at any rate, I mean, let's stay on the positive. What are we gonna? I've obviously proposed a spacer solution. You know, obviously, we've all had our chance to rant about what to do about the tyrants in a little bit more direct way. I maintain that drawing and quartering with Super Sport V8 engines isn't necessarily a bad idea, but you know, the question is, what are we going to do to be the positive change we want to see in the world? I mean, that's, well, the audience is going to want to hear realistic, you know, solutions that they can apply in their lives.
Because if you can arrange it, you homeschool your kids.
Well,
you teach them what you know how to do. That's the only. There is a hiccup in process right now. It's been going for 2 years. It's probably going to get a little bit worse, a lot worse actually. But, you know, the best solution we have to get to the spaces and colonizing the solar system, all the rest of it, is concentrate on making sure our kids are equipped to to move on in after all this dust settles.
I would say that on that subject, people need to, like the Brits in World War I, keep a stiff upper lip and have humor, because in the trenches, no matter how bad it got, they maintain their humor. That's something that was left out of the 1917 movie. If people go and watch the colorized version put out by Peter Jackson, They Shall Not Grow Old, that is one of the most important underlying themes. That and the ubiquitousness of fleas and rats. And understand how bad an anti-MIMS can get, but keep your positivity. You keep a stiff upper lip, and be there for each other. Freaking out doesn't help. One of the reasons why my boys basketball team is 6-0, and we all the teams are getting mad and they're fouling us on purpose. And this last team, they were cussing, and the coach wouldn't even shake my hand. We were pounding them to death. And then in the final quarter, I said, just go out there and have fun. And he took it to run up the score. And I was sort of like, and then he still was mad at me, even though we pulled off the defense. Right. And the reason is because no matter what, when the times get tough and the kids are frustrated, because they get frustrated, everybody gets frustrated when they play basketball, is I tell them, breathe, work on your spacing, work as a team, communicate. And if people can do that, they stand a much better chance of surviving whatever, whether it's a cosmic thing or a super volcano goes off or a mega tsunami. It's very important to keep your poise if possible, which not always is it possible. I've lost my poise a few times, never in a bad situation that resulted in anything devastating to my position. But it's very important to work on poise at all times. I think that's my opinion. I don't know if anybody has an opinion on that, but I don't know if it's a real saying among Brits that manners maketh man, but I think that it is a truth, regardless.
The Kingsman's film is, that's the opening sequence. Manners maketh the man, as he closes the door and locks it, and then proceeds to wipe the floor with the guys that want to have a fight. But my advice for people is a scouting statement, which is be prepared, but I would extend it to say be prepared to just pack up the stuff you need and walk. Forget about all the trimmings and the extra stuff. Just have what it is you're going to need to keep going, because prepare for a cyclone or a tornado or a hurricane, or be ready for an event. And when you have to pack your bags and go. Don't stick around.
Mm-hmm.
You live like there's going to be tomorrow, and things are going to be much the same as they are, but you're ready for the fact that they ain't going to happen. So it's both those things.
But remember, the question was about positive solutions. I mean, being able to, live off grid is a positive solution, but I think probably the audience will be hoping for something a little bit more, I don't know, active or something along those lines. I don't know how to describe what it.
The other things I'd advise is learn your history.
No, very good. Yeah, very good. I mean, history studies, because history is a thing. It's like nature, but history studies is definitely a MIMS or anti-MIMS, depending on who's controlling the narrative and how much propaganda has been injected into it. A real historical study, I think, is a MIMS. Although I will tell you, the price that Wilson and Blackett paid was, their home was firebombed, and Blackett was in a coma for a month because of the smoke, etc. So I mean, it can be dangerous, but it doesn't mean don't study. I wouldn't take that lesson away from it, but be prepared for reprisal of the system. I mean, so far my book was being done on Rex's channel. It was the video was demonetized, but I'm prepared for whatever. I sent the link to the book to my congressman and BCC'd my lawyer, just so that the powers that be, if mysteriously I'm I'm an enemy of the state suddenly, my lawyer's already aware that I've made the conjecture that it's because of the book. So, you know, it's very important to consider your position at all times, in my opinion. But at any rate.
Learn how to grow your food.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that
Very
myself. It's
establish
springtime in about 6 weeks, so get thinking about where you're going to put what.
Yeah, so plant your veggies.
Yeah, that's the one.
Do people here have a particular sense of which ones they think are the most important, or, you know, like what is your preferences?
Well, tomatoes, carrots, potatoes, corn, if
spinach,
you
spinach, onions, beetroots.
You know, all the veggies.
All the herbs as well, because
you only need, if you've got the space, 20 foot by 10 foot should do the job.
Right. So
stick in everything you can grow.
Don't you think it'd be important for people to learn some wild foods too?
Well, totally, yeah. Nettles, dandelions, very good. Dandelions, very good for your stomach. Nettles are about the best food you can eat. In many amazing vitamins and very highly nutritious nettles. Yeah, as much as that as you can get inside you. And also you can make really good plant food from nettles, and if you want vegetative growth, use the new nettles, and you just soak them in sugar for 2 weeks. Soak them, keep them soaking them till they just almost go black rotten, and then the liquid off that is wonderful fruit food or vegetable food, and so you can do a lot with the nettles, and it's very, very good for you, very great for your skin and everything like that. So yeah, see what you can find out in the country. And we get wild garlic end of March, and that goes for about a month, and it's absolutely delicious. I can get handfuls of that, munching it, the crisp, beautiful it is. That's
so these sorts of things means you've got to put some personal effort and really try. You know, it's not was it Yoda? You do. No,
yeah, it's just when you're going out for a walk, just grab an handful, and you know, that's the one. And before you know it, you've got half a full stomach anyway, and you've certainly. And this is just the best food you can get. Very, very good for you. The only thing we don't have too much of in the wild around here is carbohydrate, and I can get some of that from the bulrushes. You know, from the roots of the bulrushes, and you can get it from the dandelion roots. You know, you can get the big tuber root off the dandelion, or another good one is off the burdock. The burdock root's massive. So there's a few decent roots you can have as well if you do run out of meat and everything. You know, you certainly keep alive. Sort of probably from March till, in this country, March till probably October on the wild fruit and food. Totally easy to keep alive on that. And that's without killing any deer or anything like that, shooting a deer or a hare or something like that, you know. So it's quite, you know, you could easily survive here if things went tits up. So
I love using all those British expressions. That's one we use here in Kentucky. At least my father does, you know.
Yeah, British expressions. There's plenty of them. There are plenty of them. Okay, well, anyway, gentlemen, I think
it's lunchtime for the kiddos. What a great call. We covered a lot of ground. Hopefully the video does not get deplatformed on account of the very brief koof that came in. I just want to remind people, be careful about, because we've had that issue. I will try and get the Rumble up sometime this week, and we'll put some of the episodes up there as well. It's just not really a super priority considering all the paper editing and the books I'm writing, et cetera. So, but I do want to say thank you to everybody who came in and spent some time. I guess Buddy's already run off. Going. So have a good weekend. We will reconvene. It may be Sunday night, Kentucky time. It may be Monday morning, on account of, I did promise a guy that I would come to his video game stream, and he said Sunday night he was planning to. So in which case, then we wouldn't have anything till next week. But God bless everyone. I'm going to hit the stop record. 3.5 hours. Holy cow.